I've taken a map of the entire world and placed every college football team in a country that fits it best, where only one team will be standing by the end of this video. For example, Kentucky is UK, the United Kingdom, and as for the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame is Ireland. I'll try to explain all of my choices throughout this video, but if you've never seen an imperialism before, let me explain how the map will go from 126 teams to just one. First, I'll spin this team wheel, which is going to land on a college, and then I'll spin this directional wheel to decide where they attack. The loser of that matchup is eliminated from imperialism, and the winner takes all of their opponent's territory as a reward. I'll let you take one final look at the map before things get chaotic, and take a guess in the comments who's going to win the final imperialism in NCAA Football 14. Alright, here we go. The first spin of the day is going to take us to Arizona State, and it's going to be a pain to find every team's country on the map, but they're in Mali because it's the hottest country, and they're attacking north, which is Charlotte in Algeria. Going into it, the Sun Devils have a slight edge, and I think I gave Charlotte Algeria because it has the largest gold reserve in Africa. The 49ers were minors, so I felt like that made sense. They're also decent football players, because with a minute 17 left, they're only down by 7, and if they want to come back, it's crucial they picked up this 4th and 1, but they don't. Now the Sun Devils can run the clock down to about 30 seconds left before they get it back, and Arizona State is representing Mali the right way here in Africa. All they need is one first down, but going out of bounds could really hurt them, and on 3rd and 3, they are going to be well short. Jalen Jones and Charlotte now have the ball back with 55 seconds, which is honestly enough time to get down the field, but I think they're going to waste it down just spiking the ball to stop the clock, and they're trying so hard to defend their home territory here in Algeria. Now they're going with the deep shot. He is wide open, and I don't know what Arizona State's defense is doing, but we could be going to overtime. Jarius Mack just changed everything, but then Charlotte missed the extra point. There was no reason for me to watch it. They should have easily put that in, but because they didn't, I think their comeback hopes are going to fall short, and that is going to seal it. The Sun Devils have won their first game representing the hottest country, and they're also about to double the size of their territory, just knocking out the 49ers. Even though they have a ton of land though, when you look at the world map, it's still kind of small, and we have to do that 124 more times to decide our winner. This is going to take ages, and it already took me 10 hours to set up the map, but I'm pumped up for it, and Ohio is here in Lebanon going over to Louisville in Syria. One of the reasons the Bobcats got that country is there's a city in Ohio called Lebanon, and then for Louisville being Syria, we'll just say it's because of the colors. I figured the Cardinals would take care of business relatively easily, but that hasn't been the case, because as time winds down, Ohio is only trailing by 7, but they have 30 seconds and they need a touchdown. That was a filthy stiff arm, but they still have a lot of work to do, and this is going to take them to the 44. So if they need to, they'll at least have the option to get off a Hail Mary, and after spiking the ball on this next one, they're going over towards the sidelines to get out of bounds. That was a smart decision because they have no timeouts. There's only 8 seconds left now, and this ball is going to be dropped, so that means Louisville has sealed the win, but they had to fight super hard to get it. Before we get too deep into this, I will say there are probably going to be some smaller countries that are missing on the map, but I only needed 126 since that's how many teams are in college football revamped, and that's why you won't see programs like Liberty in this college football imperialism. We're back in Africa though, and there is some open land. I think this is going to touch over here, so instead of attacking, Vanderbilt gets to claim Togo, and they're representing Ghana because there's a star on their flag that looks like their logo. Now we've landed on the Pirates, who are going to be headed to the southwest, and I shouldn't have to explain why they're in Somalia, but they are attacking Arizona. I gave them Ethiopia because that's where the hottest spring in the world is, and I got a lot of my information from you all on Twitter, so some stuff might be wrong. Unfortunately for the Pirates, they weren't able to win this time because Noah Fafita had 1 touchdown through the air and then another 2 on the ground, so they've been removed from Somalia, and Arizona has expanded their territory. I'm literally so excited to see who controls the world by the end of this, and this map is massive. We've never had an imperialism like this before. I saw Dean's World did this with NFL teams, so shout out to him, and the wheel has taken us to LSU, who is stationed in France. I felt like that made sense, but they're attacking the UK, my Wildcats, already, and if my favorite college gets put out this early, I have to find a new team to root for. The only hope the Wildcats have is this game's at Kroger Field, and it turns out that didn't make a difference at all. We lost 42-7, and Jaden Daniels just wanted to make sure that my team was put out. This is the first time that we've ever done an imperialism with this much water, so it should be interesting to see how that changes things. And now that France has taken over the UK, they have a good portion of Europe. The wheel has landed on Utah though, so they're going to be playing next, and with the arrow pointing them towards BYU, they've been matched up. This is a rivalry that's been played over 100 times, and they are finally going to again this year in real life. The Utes came out on top here, winning this one by a ton, and that means BYU has been knocked out of imperialism, but with how many good colleges are still left in the Middle East, it'll be hard for any program that has to start in that area to make a deep run. The wheel has landed on Rice though, who is starting in one of the biggest territories, and because China created Rice, I had to put them there, but they're attacking Maryland down in Myanmar, whatever the country is. They have turtles there, so that's why Maryland's there, and assuming they come away with the win here, they're about to take over a massive territory. I can't believe what I'm seeing though, because with a minute left, it's a close game. game, and if Rice can go 80 yards in 70 seconds, they're gonna win this one. Now that was not a great start to this drive because JT Daniels had to spike it, and now it's 3rd and 2 where they are gonna pick it up. Now they might be getting into a little bit of a rhythm, but their offense has struggled throughout this entire game, and look who is wide open down the sidelines. Rawson McNeil, a player that I have never heard of before, but he has set up Rice for success, and now JT Daniels has an open receiver again. Braylon Walker just made sure that they went up by 3, and if Talia Tagovailoa can't pull off a miracle, this game is over. This is such an important one too because of how much is on the line just landmass wise, and this is Maryland's chance to put Myanmar on the map. They're gonna take the sack though, and now with 15 seconds left, they're in a lot of trouble. They're not gonna win this. I thought they might figure out a way to get into field goal range with the time they had left and 3 timeouts. Now they're just sending up a prayer. The sun just blocked it all out, so the shaders definitely glitched for a second, but even if they caught it, Rice did come out on top. And Coleman Coco is such a sick name. If it wasn't for that defender, most of Asia would probably be red right now, and Alabama and Russia is still going to be the biggest territory, but Rice is trying their best to catch them. With how this wheel works, there could be parts of the world that we don't get to until the end of the game too, and I'm almost positive that Central Michigan's in the middle of Africa. They are in the Central African Republic, headed down to DR Congo and Texas. But the main reason Texas is here is I saw this river on the map, and I just wanted to make the Red River rivalry in Africa. If they lose this, they'll never have a chance to play Oklahoma, but I don't see how Central Michigan could come out on top. Having Central in their name ruined it for them because they had to be in the middle of the map, and their quarterback wasn't able to get them a single point. This entire area is going to be a bloodbath, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And next up on the wheel, we are headed to New Mexico. Their team mascot's the Lobos, and there's a city in Argentina named that, so that's why they're down here attacking Coastal Carolina in Chile, but I originally had them in Mexico until I saw that the Aztecs would be a better fit. Anyway, I feel like Coastal being Chile is pretty self-explanatory because from a distance, the entire country just looks like a massive beach. And here on this teal field, we are having the battle of a lifetime. But on the defensive side of things, teams have combined for 10 points through 4 quarters. And to stay alive, New Mexico has to convert on 4th and 9, but they ran the football. I can't question it because it worked, but that was definitely an odd move. And they're so close to taking the lead on the Chancellors with their quarterback taking it in. That puts a lot of pressure on Grayson McCall and Coastal Carolina to respond back. They decided to run it too, but because nobody saw it coming, it got them 12 yards, and now they're going to throw it for another 20. That was an amazing catch from Jared Brown getting out of bounds, but that time New Mexico was prepared for the run, and this drag underneath gets them 15 yards. I don't think Coastal Carolina wants to settle for 3. They are going for the win, and you can tell by this throw, but it was swatted down, and now on 2nd and 10, Grayson McCall gets nothing. He has to just send it to the end zone if they want to score a touchdown now, and that didn't get there, but it was also dropped, so we're going to be headed to overtime assuming that this goes in. From the looks of it, Coastal's about to score on their first drive as well, as they're down at the 3, so all they have to do is hand it off, and the halfback toss worked wonders. New Mexico hasn't had it as easy as they're already on a 3rd and 13, but they get like 5 or 6 here, and to stay in this game, they have to pick up this 4th and 8, which they don't do. Their quarterback had somebody in the end zone, but he missed, and Grayson McCall just got Coastal all of Argentina's territory. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes out on top of South America because they're kind of landlocked from a lot of the other continents, and we still have a long way to go to see who takes over the world. Now, like I explained in the intro, we already know why Notre Dame is what they are, just being the Fighting Irish in Ireland, but now they're attacking LSU, and that's nuts. The Tigers already have to play twice. We'll see if they can defend their home territory. They have a lot of fans in attendance, and with exactly 1 minute left, Notre Dame is trailing by 6 points, so they have to score a touchdown. I do wish that we had next year's rosters for this, but with the new game coming out, no one was making it for this, so if you're hoping your team comes out on top, they better have had a good season last year, and Sam Hartman had to chuck it out of bounds. Now he's going to step back in the pocket, get this one out to his flat, that's going to be tackled in bounds, and it looked like Chris Tyree was trying so hard to get to the sidelines, but he couldn't make it there. It is now 4th and 5, and this is going to be taken to the flat again. LSU's defense held strong at home, so now they've taken over 2 countries, and who knows when Jaden Daniels is going to stop. They're in a pretty good spot because even though they're expanding quickly, it's to territories that aren't touching many others, and it looks like the wheel is now going to take us back to Utah. With the directional arrow, they'll be headed to the southwest, and they're going to be attacking Memphis, who's in Egypt. Obviously, I had to give the Tigers Egypt because Memphis's city name comes from an ancient city in Egypt called Memphis, and they just ripped that name right from them to use it themselves. They're losing with 75 seconds left though, so they better get at least a field goal if they want to stay in imperialism, and there's no reason to spike the ball on this 2nd and 2. Even with no timeouts, they still have plenty of time, and now they've lost another 3, so Seth Hennigan better do something special here, and I don't understand why he ran the clock all the way down to 20 seconds before doing it. With no timeouts left, that's pretty much guaranteeing that they're going to have a hard time getting a field goal, and if they want one, and they're gonna have to get like 20 yards on this play, but they don't. They're not even gonna get this spike off, the game's over. And Memphis just couldn't hold on to Egypt. So Utah's gonna get a lot bigger with just that result. We haven't eliminated that many teams, but it's been a minute since we checked out the world map, and it just continues to hit me how much farther we have to go. We're headed to Central America for the first time though, where Florida's in Guatemala, and I just put them there because of Gators, but they're gonna claim Belize since no other team got them. They just lucked out by not having to face off against anybody. But Michigan State's in Europe, so I highly doubt they're gonna have the same fate, but I was wrong. Albania is left unclaimed, and clearly they're in Greece because of the Spartans. That is back-to-back spins where countries haven't had to play though. Now it's on Georgia Southern, and just by off of their name, you should have an idea of where I put them. They're down here at the bottom of Africa in Nambia, attacking Kansas now, and I think I put the Jayhawks here because they had a basketball player from Angola. It was Sylvia De Sosa, and these overalls are so different that Kansas should be able to win this one by at least 21. I was right on the money with my prediction, as they're going to beat Georgia Southern by 24, and that means the Jayhawks' territory has completely doubled in size. They're in a pretty good spot since they're near the edge of the map, and Utah cannot seem to avoid being landed on. Now they're playing the Cardinals, so only one red team can survive, and the Utes are going in with a little bit of an overall advantage, so Louisville might be in a little bit of trouble. Well, I don't think they're going to come out on top. They're losing with 22 seconds left, but they do have a slight chance, and their biggest issue was it took them so long to get the ball back. They've pulled off a pretty impressive comeback because at one point it was 37-20, but that completion inbounds is going to run out the rest of the clock, and Jack Plummer's 3 interceptions cost them the game. Without them, Louisville would have probably won, and Plummer's going to have a hard time sleeping with that on his mind. His team just got put out, so we are headed back to the wheel again, where it's landed on another college that's in the center of the map, and poor Middle Tennessee State has to go on the road to Texas. They're literally only in Chad because it was the most central spot I could find, and now they have a very tough task ahead of them. They hung around better than I thought they would, but if they don't pick up this 4th and 12, it's all over, and I don't understand how you drop that ball there. Now Middle Tennessee State has to be wiped off of the map, and Chad is going to go over to Texas. That is going to expand their territory a lot, but in that continent, Arizona State might have a little bit more land. I see a lot of white territories around the Longhorns though, so I'd imagine they'd go far, and now we're going to Texas A&M, who is in Qatar. That's going to force them to play Florida State, who's in Saudi Arabia, and I don't care if Texas A&M has a college campus in Qatar. This is a battle of oil money in college football. Since they're stuck in the ACC, Florida State wants the outside investment so bad, but in order to get it, they should probably impress as they're defending their home territory. And what is Jordan Travis doing? He's playing like he's still injured. He can't stand up straight, but he completed this pass. They're also going to break multiple tackles, and that's what you want to see out of the Seminoles. Jordan Travis bouncing back very quickly, trying to lead his team into the end zone, and they're going to have to get a touchdown since they're down by 6, which they do. Since this is a key play, I'm watching the extra point, and after the kick return took a decent bit of time off the clock, Texas A&M's not left with much. That didn't stop Max Johnson from getting them to midfield though, and why would you run it? All they have to do is get into field goal range. They literally have the timeouts that they need, and this might be a controversial call as the refs are saying that was not a catch. I don't know why the Aggies didn't challenge that. That's all they needed to do there. Now Max Johnson throws an interception, and they're going to lose to Florida State. All they had to do was throw the challenge flag, get that play overturned, and then they were in field goal range to kick the game winner. I didn't see it coming, but the Saudis' pockets might run a little bit deeper than Qatar's. And with that spawn point, Texas A&M was just set up for failure. Now Indiana is in India, and it's not for anything clever. India just sounds like Indiana, but they are going to face off against West Virginia, and the Mountaineers are located in the country Nepal, which is also where you'd find Mount Everest. It's probably pretty self-explanatory that the Mountaineers would be in the country that has the tallest mountain in the world, and I am stunned at how bad both offenses have played in this game. With a minute left, neither team has more than 14 points. Indiana's going for a deep shot here though, and it's swatted down, so that's going to make it 4th and 3, and the Hoosiers are going to have to reach the end zone for the first time today on this drive if they want to get the win, but that didn't happen, and these rushing stats are not very impressive. They basically just handed West Virginia all of India, which is one of the bigger countries in the world, and I'm very interested to see who comes out on top in Asia. There's a couple big programs like Alabama and Michigan, but outside of that, they're all pretty mid, and the last wheel spin landed on Akron. Because their mascot's a kangaroo, they have Australia, and they have to attack down, which is going to put them up against New Zealand, where Hawaii is. And I really just gave the Rainbow Warriors New Zealand because it's an island like them. There was no deeper meaning behind it than that, and I am stunned at how terrible Akron's offense has been in this game. Hawaii Stadium's also a little glitched out, so we're barely able to see the field, but they're going to take the sack, and the Zoos are literally about to score 0 points. This is nuts. I thought Akron was going to represent Australia really well, but instead they've already lost all of it to New Zealand, and that is a big shift down in the oceanic region. There's not many schools there because I just flooded most of the smaller islands, but we just landed on one of my favorite picks for this entire video. I put Clemson up here in North Korea, and they're going to be attacking China and Rice, but the main reason they're representing that country is because Clemson's transfer policy is very similar to North Korea's. I feel like strict borders is pretty equivalent to just not using the portal, and the Tigers could clearly use some help considering they're only up by 6 with 2 minutes left. JT Daniels is trying to put on a masterclass and get this upset win, but in order to take the lead, they have got to reach the end zone, and all of a sudden it's 4th and 3. I really hope they don't just hand this ball off, but they did. That's never going to work against a team like Clemson, or maybe it will. And how did they not win that battle up front? I did not think that China and Rice would defend their home territory this well, but I forgot to factor in that they do have the Great Wall, and JT Daniels is going to help them go down at the 1. He could have definitely scored that. I don't know what he was thinking, but on the next play, Dean Connors punched it in anyway, and I've learned my lesson about watching extra points. All Clemson needs is a field goal, so they should be able to make that happen, but instead, Cade Klubnik decided not to hike the ball until there was 2 seconds left, and it looks like it is all over. The AI in this game is so stupid, but Rice makes it a step further, so I can support it because that's a great upset. It turns out that North Korea was not as strong as they thought they were, and if Kentucky's going to be out, I feel like I should probably start rooting for Rice. They're an underdog story, they've pulled off 2 incredible wins, and now we're going to see where Oklahoma is attacking. This worked out just how I wanted it to. We have the Red River rivalry, and whoever wins this might just take all of Africa. I feel like the stakes couldn't be any higher than they are right now, so you would think that Texas would show up, but they didn't, and they just lost by 20. Cover athlete Quinn Ewers did not have a very good day, and that should drastically change how the rest of this stuff plays out, at least on this continent. Outside of these teams over on the East Coast, Oklahoma doesn't have that much competition, and you really never have any clue who's going to come out on top in Imperialism. This next one was literally a perfect fit, and that's because Georgia is in the country Georgia, but they did get lucky, so they don't have to attack anybody. Because of how small their landmass is, I honestly forgot that they were there, and because they're a bunch of horses, Boise State is in Mongolia. Apparently, it's a horse country that's probably about to be taken over by Alabama/Russia, and the Crimson Tide got that country because it just felt like a good fit. Some of these are purely off vibes, but I feel like I nailed this one, and like expected, Mongolia/Boise State did not get the job done. The Crimson Tide are a tough opponent though, and now they're sitting along the border of Rice. They better hope this wheel goes somewhere else, and it is going to land on Virginia Tech, which is in a country that I'm not even sure how to pronounce. I think it's Turkmenistan, and their mascot's a Hokie, which is another name for a turkey, so that's just a little play on words there, but they didn't have to attack anybody, and Ball State might, but there's also an open country right next to them. It's a close call, but this arrow is going up into Saudi Arabia, and the only reason Ball State is Yemen is because their colors are very similar. Now, I have a feeling that they're not going to represent that country that well, because they had to go on the road playing in a tough environment, but they put up a decent fight, only losing by 20, and their defense did a pretty good job on Jordan Travis, but Trey Benson made up for it with almost 200 yards and 4 tutties. I'm kind of shocked at how quickly the Middle East is thinning out, because so far they've lost a lot of colleges, and now it's Iowa State. They're the Cyclones, and their arrow's going to take them up north, but the reason they're Bangladesh is because that's where the world's deadliest tornado in history was, and they have to attack the Mountaineers. They're no strangers to getting wiped out though, so I thought West Virginia might blow them out, but it was actually the other way around, as no matter what happens here, this game is over. Now, don't get me wrong, that was an impressive snag, but when you're down by 16 points, this isn't going to win you the game, and the Cyclones just acquired a large portion of Asia. They've added both Nepal and India into their arsenal, getting all of this, and this would be an impressive amount of land if China and Russia's territories weren't so large. It makes it look pretty small in scale until you compare it to the rest of the world, and the wheel is now taking us over to Cal. They're in South America, and their mascot is a golden bear, so that's how they got Bolivia, which also has bears, even if they're not the same type, and they're attacking Texas State and Paraguay. I thought the flag in the state of Texas looked very similar to Paraguay, so that's how that connection happened. And look at that, even in 2013, the Bobcat Stadium has the upper deck. Somehow, the top half of that was missing in the first College Football 25 trailer, so that's why I said that I'm sure EA will fix it, and with a minute left, Texas State is only trailing by 6 here. If TJ Finley can put together a good drive, that would mean Paraguay would win, beating Cal, but that's a terrible throw. He just floated that straight to the defender, and this game is over. I mean, you just can't make that read there, and anybody from Bolivia is rejoicing right now. They're still nowhere near as big as Brazil, but this is going to help them out a little bit, and who knows, later on they might just take all of this from Oregon. The cool thing about Imperialism is literally any of these colleges could win it, and we're staying in South America with this one taking us to the Falkland Islands. It's a small country that I made a lot bigger, but that's because Florida Atlantic is in the Atlantic Ocean, and they're attacking Coastal, who currently controls Argentina and Chile. We've been blessed with another matchup on the teal field, and FAU scored on almost every single one of their drives, but they finally got stopped. I don't think Coastal can come back from this though, and they couldn't, which means Grayson McCall has been eliminated. but at least they gave us one fun game against New Mexico before that happened, and FAU's territory just expanded like 25 times bigger. They've done really well for themselves, and now we get to see South Alabama, who's just near the bottom of Africa because they have South in their name. They're in Botswana, and the same thing's true for Southern Miss, who they're attacking, and they're in Zimbabwe. We're about to see who's the better Southern school, and this is a nice little Sunbelt matchup in Africa. I figured that meant it would be close, but South Alabama's offense has been insane, and you rarely see 55 points when playing on 5-minute quarters. Their starting quarterback passed for 3 touchdowns, and then they had a running back rush for 3. So they dominated, and that's one less Southern team down here in this part of Africa. There's still plenty of teams left on the continent though, and next up we are headed over to Auburn. Since we know what Alabama is, I think you all can guess what country they represent, but they'll be going in the opposite direction, attacking NC State in Moldova. The reason the Wolfpack got that country is because there's wolves there, and it's time to see how Auburn does representing Ukraine. Well, I don't think I've ever seen this score combination before, but it looks like NC State is up by a point with 1.5 minutes left, and Peyton Thorne is doing his best to lead this team down the field to take the lead. Since all they need is a field goal, the one thing that you can't do there is take a sack. And then things got even worse. Their offensive line had a false start, so it's 3rd and 19. They're going with a wide receiver screen, and what is Peyton Thorne doing? He somehow managed to make this a 4th and 30, and even with all 3 timeouts, he has run the clock down to no time left. I don't get it. That was such a weird ending from Auburn, because they were literally so close from kicking a game-winning field goal, and the Tigers have been taken out pretty early on. Auburn never does too well though, and we are headed back to Kansas. So there's been a ton of action in the southern part of Africa, and the Jayhawks are going to try to take down Oklahoma by attacking them. This is for the largest territory on the continent, and I can't believe how quickly we're losing teams in this area. Just like when the Sooners played against the Longhorns, they controlled this entire matchup. So they've gotten themselves another pretty simple win, and hats off to Dylan Gabriel for playing like this. He's the reason that his team has done so well so far. And Oklahoma started in just Tanzania, but now they have all of this. We're closing in on a top 100 too, as we just need a few more eliminations. And the reason for Purdue's location was commented by one of you. They're in Peru, and he said whenever his dad tries to say Purdue, it always sounds like Peru. And Kent State got Ecuador because their colors are similar. If you haven't already noticed, there's quite a few colleges that got a certain nation just because of the colors lining up. And the Golden Flashes did not have a great day, losing this one by 14 points to the Boilermakers. That just wasn't a very exciting game, and we'll see how far the Purdue-Peru combo is able to go, where their fate is all in the hands of this wheel, and it's taking us to Minnesota. Because they're in such a cold climate, I did put them up north, and they're in Norway while Pitt is in Sweden because the colors line up perfectly. Both of these teams should be used to a colder climate, but only one of them can come out on top of this matchup. Just by looking at the team overalls, I should have known that this wasn't going to be close, and Minnesota fans are going to be pretty disappointed. They let Rodney Hammond Jr. rush for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns on them, which means that all of Norway now belongs to Sweden. And Europe's had some interesting developments in it so far. We're just one team away from making a top 100 now though, and Miami being in Cuba has to be the most obvious fit. 29% of Miami's population is Cubans, and they're attacking Tulsa, who's in Haiti, and I think we can all connect the dots to figure out why the Golden Hurricane might be there. I remember them having that devastating hurricane when I was like maybe 6 or 7 years old, but I'm 21 now, so I might be way off with that, and this one wasn't much of a contest. The main player was Henry Parrish Jr., rushing for quite a few yards, and unfortunately for Haiti, there are some more hurricanes coming to their territory. I'd also like to point out, I forgot to put Fresno State in the Dominican Republic until about 10 turns ago, so they were missing at the start of this video, and this is what the world map looks like with a top 100. That's only the start of all the eliminations though. We have a long way to go, and I'm pretty sure that I dropped Old Dominion in Belgium. That's because they're one of the European countries with a monarch, but they have to face off against LSU, and the Tigers should come away with another win. They're really starting to make their impact on Europe, and I don't think the Monarchs were ever going to have a chance in this matchup. They just couldn't compete. Defensively, they couldn't stop Jaden Daniels, and offensively, their quarterback was terrible, so they did not represent Belgium very well, and now the wheel is going to take us over to Toledo. I'm almost certain that I put them in Iran, and it's probably best if I don't say anything more than that. To be honest, this matchup feels pretty even, and there's a lot of territory that's currently at stake. Somehow through an entire game though, Virginia Tech has only been able to score 3 points, and they're not coming back with 42 seconds left. Kyron Drones just didn't have a good day, and Toledo didn't have to give very much effort to get that win. They're in a tough spot though because they have both Tennessee, Georgia, and Michigan on their borders, so we'll see how long they make it during this imperialism, and Wisconsin's the next program that's been picked. They're in Poland attacking Utah State, who controls Czechia, and there's not really a great reason for either of these colleges to have those countries. I wrote down that their colors were similar for both of them, but I think it worked out because Wisconsin is a really good fit for Poland, and with 52 seconds left, we have a tie game here at 28, the 3rd and 5 halfback screen doesn't work, or at least it didn't look like it did, but the refs gave them the first down, and that gives the Badgers a chance to get a field goal still. However, we know that the old AI on this game is broken, and of course they ran the clock down to 0 seconds, so they played for overtime, and stuff like that is why I am so excited for college football 25. After getting a stop there, Utah State can win with a touchdown, and here on 1st and 10, they have plenty of time to throw it straight to Wisconsin. I don't know what their quarterback was thinking, but now he's going to take a sack, and it looks like we're going to be headed to double overtime, assuming that this one isn't intercepted too. Number 59 is quite the number for a kicker, but he is going to drill this, and Utah State would score a touchdown after that, so Wisconsin has to respond back. Both of these teams cannot seem to pull away from each other, and Wisconsin would score another touchdown after that, but not get the 2-point conversion. So here in the 3rd overtime, maybe this is where Utah State could win the game, except they're now faced with a 4th and 13. They had a great chance with this drive, but they just took a check down and they trucked the defender. They're trying to get the first, but somebody else on the Badgers brought him down, and that means Poland is going to expand their territory. I don't know many Aggie fans, but the few out there are not going to be happy about that. And headed back to the wheel, this time it's going to take us to FAU. We've already seen the Owls play once before, and now they're headed to the West, where it's nowhere near that arrow, but the closest team to them is Georgia State. I gave the Panthers Uruguay because their colors aligned, and it just felt like a solid fit, but we'll see if they can defend their home territory. Well, they couldn't, and from what we've seen out of FAU's offense, it's elite. That's back-to-back games where they've scored a lot, and I think it's because of their rushing attack on the ground. Their next opponents are going to be harder though, so that could change things, and I'm pretty sure most teams on the continent are trying to avoid Oregon. Speaking of doing that, Louisiana Monroe is on their border, and they're in the country French Guiana for the French ties, but they're getting to attack Stanford instead. Stanford's in Suriname, and because of the Amazon rainforest, there's a lot of forest in that country, so I figured it made sense to drop them there since their on-field mascot is a tree. If you've never seen it in game, it is quite a sight to see, and Louisiana Monroe is losing with about a minute left, so they have to score a touchdown to win. After spiking the ball, it is 3rd and 2, and they are going to not make it to the first down marker, or they will. That player just saved them, but Charlie Norman didn't get out of bounds, so they have to run up to the line. The clock still stopped with the first, and then taking that sack just ruined everything. By the time they're getting off this 3rd and 16, there's really not that much time left, and Stanford gets the interception to just end it. They have put the country Suriname on their back, and they've been able to practically double the size of their territory. When you zoom out on the rest of South America though, it's not that much, and I'm so excited to see that we are now headed to Tennessee. Now I know I am a Kentucky fan, but you all are just gonna have to hear me out, because there is a really cool story about the water tower that's in that country. As they attack Toledo and Iran, I'll explain it, and here's a picture of the water tower in Iraq that has the Tennessee logo on it. There were some troops that were stationed there that were massive Tennessee fans, and they had the option to paint that water tower, so they decided to drop a big old volunteer logo in the middle of Iraq, and that's why Tennessee is the perfect fit to represent this country in imperialism. Even though they had to face off against rockets as well, they were able to beat out Toledo. And I wish I knew more world history, but if I had to guess, there's probably some conflict between these two countries. With the way things are going, this is quite the deadly stretch of Florida State, Tennessee, Michigan, and Alabama, and I'm sure all the countries in the world are trying to avoid that area as much as possible. We've landed on another bear team though, so we're headed back to South America, and there's lots of bears in Venezuela, plus the colors align, so that's why they got that country, while Wake Forest is in Guyana, because just like Stanford's reasoning, part of the Amazon rainforest, a massive forest, is in that country. It looks like with 69 seconds left on the dot, both of these teams are in a close battle, but Baylor just sealed the game with that interception. Literally the first play that we watch, Mitch Griffiths just decides to throw it straight to the other team, and these matchups have not been as good as some of the ones that we were getting yesterday. I'm sure it'll pick up at some point though, and there's not that many colleges left in South America, but there's also a good bit in Central America, so we have to count that too. And I think Arizona State was the first college that won a game. Now they're playing again, this time against the Huskies, who I gave to Morocco because of colors, and their fans aren't going to be very happy with me because they're actually the Cougars. Washington is the Huskies, so that is a bad mistake to make, and the Cougars are going to have no issues knocking out the hottest country in the world. Cam Ward just had his way along with Nakia Watson, so now Washington State gets to take over all of this land, and aside from Oklahoma, they're the second biggest country in Africa at the moment. On a world scale though, there are a lot that are beating them out, but before we continue this worldwide imperialism, I've partnered with Geology to bring you this sponsored video. They reached out to me about 6 months ago now, and at the time I was really struggling with acne, so I needed a skincare routine, but I had no idea where to start. I had to test out Geology anyway before I was willing to promote it, so I went over to their website, filled out a questionnaire to get a personalized skincare routine, and the one that they assigned to me was Regimen 7. Geology is a 32-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company, so I was excited to see if it helped my acne, and for the past 6 months in the morning, I've been using the Everyday Face Wash, and then the Tone Control Morning Cream, which is an SPF. Then at at night, before bed I clean my face again with everyday face wash, and then rub this night cream in all over my face. The final step was my biggest insecurity, dark circles under my eyes, and this eye cream's been my favorite product because it's really helped with that issue. Ever since I started using Geology about 6 months ago, I've been really happy with how my skin looks, so I'm willing to finally promote it. And if you scan the QR code, head to the first link in the description or use promo code Bordeaux70. You'll get 70% off your skincare trial set and up to 50% off add-ons. You're getting $49 in products for just the cost of shipping, and committing to better skin does not have to be difficult, but now it's time to resume worldwide college football imperialism. And this feels like the best way to end the imperialism series in NCAA Football 14. I've already had an absolute blast filming this video, and we have a long way to go, but Purdue is attacking Oregon, who is Brazil, just because of the colors. I thought that link up was way too obvious to not make it, and it was about time that we saw the Ducks take the field. To my surprise, they are on the verge of being upset, but they are driving down the field, and I'll be very interested to see what they do if they didn't pick up this 3rd and inches. Purdue has represented Peru really well in this matchup. For it to even be a contest is impressive, but Bo Nix is a grown man, and when quarterbacks are making plays like that, there's really not much you can do. This is also not going to work out well for them. So they had to burn their first time out, and they probably need to start throwing bombs down the field. I guess this also works too if they're going to break a tackle. And no matter what, the Boilermakers are in range to throw up a Hail Mary. I'm sure they would love to reach the end zone differently than that though, so they need to get closer. And on 3rd and 6, Hudson Card is going to throw it out of bounds again. Oregon's defense is playing really well right now, and I don't know what that play was, but it was not the right one in that situation, so the Ducks are going to get Brazil a win in this imperialism. Besides Ohio State, they're one of the favorites to take over their continent, and the only problem that they might run into is they're just sandwiched between everybody. They're going to have to play a lot of games where fluky things can happen, and I ended up giving South Carolina South Korea. They're attacking Rice, and the reason that they're here is because Clemson started in North Korea, plus both of them had South in the name, so it was a great match. They have a chance to take over the North Korea and Chinese territories too with a win here, and I'm disappointed in Rice for playing this bad because this one was never even a contest. They made Spencer Rattler look amazing, and it's also left most of the territories in Asia with a red color. Somebody needs to step up and start beating some of those countries, but it's all on the wheel to set that up, and they're going over to Utah. For starting in such a small territory, the Utes have had to play a ton, and now they're going up for Troy's land, who's sitting in Turkey. The ancient city Troy was in that area, so that's why the Trojans got that country, and we will see if they're about to get wiped out again. Well, this is not what I was expecting, but when Troy had the Trojans on their side this time, they ended up playing amazing, winning 28-0. And Bryson Barnes put up an atrocious quarterback stat line, so I'm not shocked that they weren't able to make that game a contest. Just looking at the map now, there's a whole stretch of teams that have this gray coloring, and it's starting to get confusing to look at, so one of them has got to go. That won't be now though, because we're headed back to Oregon and Brazil, and this time the Ducks are attacking Cal that's in Bolivia and Paraguay. The Bears could be underrated here though. They have the home field advantage, and they might just take over most of the continent for themselves. Even if they can't pull it off, at least they're going to give us a good game with just a couple of minutes left. And here on 4th and 4, Cal is going to go through the air where this ball is caught, and they're going down at the 12. They're so close to tying things up, but they still have to figure out how to get into the end zone. And I thought they'd hand the ball off to Jade Knott, but instead they're just going to throw it to him, and he's not going to go far. 3rd and 4 now, he's in motion this time. Again, he is open in the flat, but they went somewhere else. And with how the AI works in this game, I would assume that we're just going to be headed to overtime. I don't see their clock management skills being good enough to get down the field into field goal range, but they just did with that pass from Bo Nix. Troy Franklin's a beast, and Brazil or Oregon is in such a great position at the moment. They'd end up getting into field goal range, and this kick is going to seal it. So Cal came close, but they weren't able to take down the Ducks, and at this rate, there's only going to be like one college left standing in South America before we get to the top 50. There's currently 88 colleges left, so we still have a long way to go before that happens, and if I'm remembering right, the Roadrunners are positioned in Honduras. The reason for this is even though they're rare, you can find some of them here, and they're going to be attacking Miami. So if the Hurricanes handle this right, they're going to be taking out more of Central America. They have the home field advantage, but UTSA is pretty good for a small school, and I really wasn't expecting this, but Miami's losing with a minute left. I knew there was a chance this could happen though, especially when you have Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback, and this throw goes straight to UTSA, so NCAA Football 14 is way more realistic than I ever give it credit for. That was his first interception of the game, but it was a very costly one, and it means at least for now, this area of the map no longer has to worry about hurricanes. I want to say it's safer than ever before, but there's still some areas that are left standing, and it's a shame the Hurricanes couldn't demolish a few specific islands before they got put out. The wheel has landed on USF though, so we're headed to the bottom of Africa, and it made perfect sense for South Florida to be in South Africa, but now they have to attack South Alabama. They're going to have a tough matchup going on the road, and since I live in Tampa, I have to root for the Bulls right now. They're doing pretty well, as you can see, holding the Jaguars to only 9 points, and that is going to continue, with South Alabama just forfeiting winning by punting the ball here, and I am proud of how the Bulls played in this matchup. The freshman QB represented South Africa well, but with the current schools around them, I have a very hard time believing that they're going to go far. The only thing USF has going for themselves right now is they're near the bottom of the map, and we have seen team location carry colleges farther than they should go in a lot of different imperialisms. Now we have TCU for the first time, and I love the reasoning that they're in Panama. The national animal here is a frog, and they're attacking Louisiana Tech, who's in Costa Rica, but the only reason they got that country is because their colors are an identical match. I also think the state of Louisiana kinda looks like Costa Rica, and we'll see if they're able to defend their homeland. Well, evidently not very good, because with a minute left in this game, they're trailing by 14, and they still had a slight chance if number 9 could have held onto this football, but he took a hit and he dropped it. With that result, TCU is going to double their territory down here in South America, and that's going to lead to the wheel taking us over to Temple. Temple got their country because that's where the largest temple in the world is, and I think it's pronounced Angkor Wat in Cambodia, but anyway, the arrow pointed this way, so they take over more land. And these schools that don't have to play whenever the wheel lands on them are super lucky. Now we have Bowling Green in the United Arab Emirates, and you might be wondering why they're here, but one of you found the oddest tidbit of information. Apparently, the UAE is the largest importer of falcons in the world, and I don't know why they're importing that many falcons, but it means that Bowling Green is a great match. All that money clearly hasn't gone to helping their product on the field though, as they're losing by 30, and Jordan Travis continues to take over most of the Middle East. I'm sure that he would love to know that he's being associated with that right now, and I hope this wheel takes us to another team with a really cool story. Unfortunately, it landed on Northern Illinois, so that's not the case, because the only reason they're in Belarus is since there's Huskies here, and they have to attack Alabama. I think we all know what's about to happen, and that's a bold move by them to go after a country like that. I thought they were trying to avoid fighting, but clearly that wasn't the case, and now they've been eliminated from imperialism. If someone's going to take out the Crimson Tide, they're going to have to be really good, and currently, just looking at the map, Michigan's the only one that can probably challenge them well. If we're lucky enough to get that battle, it's going to be a really good one, and I have a feeling that this wheel is not going to take us there. Instead, we got taken to North Macedonia with San Jose State, and they're here because Spartans were here too, but they don't have to battle yet. Because it was free to take, they just invaded a country called Kosovo, and I've yet to have an Oklahoma State fan figure out why I gave them what I did. They got this small country called Bhutan, but it's because both of them are orange, and I thought that was a pretty obvious connection, but nobody was able to get it. Either way, what's important is right now they have a ton on the line, because with a win, they'd control a good portion of Asia, and right now they're down inside the 10-yard line. It looks like instead of going for a touchdown though, they've started to chew the clock and they're going to settle for 3. So that's the smartest I've ever seen the computer handle the final minute. Even South Carolina called a timeout, and that's going to give the Gamecocks a chance to respond back, but they have a long way to go. It's probably best that that ball was dropped right there, and now Spencer Rattler is going for the deep shot. So South Carolina has almost gotten themselves into field goal range, and he is putting his team on his back. Now they just have to handle this smartly like Oklahoma State did, and they're inside the 10. So I'd say that we can pretty safely assume that this one is over. Oklahoma State's not even trying to ice them, they're going to put it down the middle. And the Gamecocks came out on top there. They gave up 190 rushing yards to Ollie Gordon, but it didn't matter. Spencer Rattler wanted to keep his team in it, and we're barely going to notice that Oklahoma State's even gone. I'm really happy with how that one went. It was a nail biter. We needed something like that. And FAU's just starting to get really unlucky with how many times they've been landed on. They're not going to cross the entire ocean, so there's really nowhere else for them to go besides Oregon, and the Ducks have a great opportunity to get even more territory. I figured that things might go this way in South America, but FAU has a chance to shock the world, because with a minute and a half left, they're only trailing by 1, their quarterback's taken off, and Daniel Richardson just got them a huge gain. Now he's going to throw it over the middle, and it's brought in. That ball sat in the air for a little bit too long. He's also trucking somebody. And who is this kid at quarterback? He's playing amazing right now. They've done everything that they've needed to win this game, and I don't think the Oregon Ducks are capable of doing what the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes did against the Bills a few years ago. If they somehow got into field goal range here, I would be shocked. There's just not enough time left, and FAU's about to take over most of South America, assuming they don't give this up, which they don't. The only thing Oregon can really do now is chuck up a Hail Mary. I'm sure FAU's going to have some dudes back there, and they are going to swat it away. So the Owls have pulled off an amazing upset on the road. They just conquered all of Brazil plus more, and this just shows whenever I say anybody can win imperialism, I really mean it. No matter how good your team is, the more you play, the more likely you are to lose, and half of the world is red at this point, so some of those countries need to go. If I'm remembering right, Syracuse is in Netherlands because their colors match up, and they are, but probably not for long since they're attacking LSU. You're never in a good spot when you have to play the Heisman winner on the road, and we all know that Death Valley makes things 10 times more difficult. I might have jinxed it though, because with 40 seconds left, the Tigers are trailing by 5 points, and that was almost a sack. Jaden Daniels got it out in time, but he still has to get his team down the field, and he's going to break the sack. He's doing all that he can, even if earlier on in this game he didn't play as well, and this is going to get them past midfield. If they're going to score a touchdown though, they probably have to to start going for 20-yard passes like they did right here. And if this is 4 verticals over on the right side of the field, they probably would have had something open, but it wasn't. Instead, they're going to have to rush to the line of scrimmage just to spike the ball to stop the clock. And with 4 seconds left, this has to be the final play of the game that is going to result in a drop. I didn't think Syracuse was going to pull it off, but Garrett Schrader and the Orange are representing Netherlands well, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that now they control all of this territory. Just looking at Europe right now, there's no telling who's going to take it all, because with LSU out, I feel like most of those teams are a pretty even match, and we are headed to Madagascar, which is where I put Penn State. That's because of Alex the Lion from the Madagascar movie, and they're attacking SMU, who's in Mozambique, which I probably just butchered the pronunciation of. Anyway, there's 2 reasons they're there. One is because Southern Methodist is a southern place, and 2, apparently there's a lot of Methodist people that live there, but the Mustangs could be eliminated very soon. They're currently trailing by 8 points with a minute left, and Preston Stone is going to throw it straight up in the air, but his receiver Jordan Hudson somehow made that catch, so their drive stays alive, and that throw was on the run, but it was dropped. And that was an incredible play. I couldn't believe he put that throw on the money, but he does it again. Southern Methodist still has a chance, and this is going to get them 8 more, but now they're probably just going to waste it down by spiking the ball. And on 3rd and 2, Preston Stone is going to go to his check down, which wasn't smart. They just lost 4 yards, but at least they got out of bounds, and now they're going to come away with a first, so it's not over yet, and I don't understand why they're spiking it. If you didn't know, until you get set, the clock stops on first downs in college football, and because they wasted it down, it's very quickly become 3rd and 10 where they ran it. That means it all comes down to this one final play where SMU goes to their running back, but there's no way he makes it to the end zone. And it was a valiant effort, but Penn State comes out on top. There probably aren't Nittany Lions in Madagascar, but that's such a minor detail. Lions are a good enough reason for them to have that region. And I don't even know what a Nittany Lion is. It's probably like a mountain lion or something. Now we have Texas Tech, who's a college that we haven't seen play yet, and they're sitting in Tunisia because their Raiders and Pirates were all throughout this Mediterranean area. They have a good chance to put themselves on the map too, because the Cougars have a lot of land that they're attacking, and I'm very impressed with how Washington State's done so far. They handled themselves well in this game, and even with Cam Ward not playing that well, they doubled the score. These Cougars could be a real threat to the rest of Africa, and because of what the Pac-12 did to them, I'll root for them too. I still can't believe how quickly that entire conference just dissolved, and I felt really smart about my choice for where I put North Texas. The Mean Green are on the north part of the map in Greenland, and now they're attacking Washington, who's in Canada, but there's no deep reasoning for why the Huskies got Canada. I just thought of what Northern College would remind me of Canada, and Washington was the first one to come to mind, so that one was purely off of vibes, but I'm sure they have Huskies up there, and how is this game close? There is absolutely no reason that this Washington team should only be up by 7, and they should have picked that, but they didn't. Now it's 3rd and 10, the Mean Green are going to go to their check down to get a few, and they stop the clock by getting out of bounds, but they still have to convert on 4th and 6, and they don't. It's not Michael Penix's fault it was close either. He played amazing, and that failed attack has just given the Huskies more territory. To this day, the only successful attack that's come from this area of the map is by an iceberg, and headed back to the wheel, it is taking us to Colorado State. Now originally, they got their position because there were battering rams used there, but there's also a kicker on their team named Jordan, so they're in the country Jordan, and they're attacking Troy. I also have to say, the Rams have a real chance to shake up this area of the map, and we're about to see if Troy can withstand another attack. I'd say they're doing pretty well though, because all they have to do is hold on for one final defensive stop, and that tackle in bounds is a very big deal for them. Down by 8, Colorado State doesn't have any timeouts remaining, and on 4th and 7, they went with a quarterback run up the middle. That's gonna seal it. Troy gets another win, and they're better at withstanding from attacks than I thought they were. Because of this result too, most of the area is gonna stay gray, and I think Florida State is in a really underrated location. They should be just fine as long as the wheel doesn't land on them, and Appalachian State, who's in Kyrgyzstan, is now attacking South Carolina. The whole reason they got that country is just like the West Virginia one, and that's because their mascot's a mountaineer and there's mountains there. That was one of the many countries that I hadn't even heard of before I started setting up this video, and if Appalachian State can't pick up this 4th and 5, they're already going to be eliminated, but they got enough. Hope has stayed alive for the Mountaineers. All they have to do is get a field goal if they want to send it to overtime, and because their quarterback threw that ball on the run, it wasn't very accurate, but this one is getting them to midfield. I would not expect the computer to manage the clock right in this situation, so don't get too excited yet, and if they can keep this rate of movement up, they might as well just go for the end zone, which they did. It almost worked for them, but it was a bit off target, and that is super unfortunate. Now what's most likely going to happen is they're going to get a few yards here or lose a few, and then call their final timeout. That way they can set up for this field goal that is going to send it to overtime, and Spencer Rattler's already faced with a 3rd and 7, but because he got it out quickly, they should get a touchdown. If they don't, they're pretty much set up to lose in overtime, and on 3rd and goal, it looks like they are going to come up just a little bit short. It's almost like the Gamecocks don't want to win right now, and this is Appalachian State's chance to really make a statement. I feel like they're going to get a touchdown, but they went with the run on 3rd and 2 and it ended up paying off. This is really coming down to the wire. You do not want to settle for 3 now, especially with so much land on the line. They've decided to throw it, but it didn't work out for them, and we are going to double OT. For all I know, this could drag on forever, but maybe not. Appalachian State has gotten it down to the 2, and then they immediately go backwards. It's like they don't want to win this game. There's a decent chance that they're going to have to kick another field goal, and then they committed a false start. That really shouldn't affect their kicker hitting this, but it just shows that they probably don't deserve to win this, and the Gamecocks could get a touchdown to just end it right now. I always get nervous being in overtime on these older games too, because I've seen it glitch out to where only one college gets a possession and Spencer Rattler finds his way to the end zone. That means this one is over. South Carolina wins, and that's like their 3rd or 4th good result. I gotta give credit to them for that, and with the elimination of Appalachian State, this is the top 75 of worldwide imperialism. What's crazy is we still haven't even hit the halfway point, and we've already seen Tennessee have to play before, but they're gonna have to again. This is an enormous matchup as well because they have to go on the road to play at the Big House, and I put Michigan in Kazakhstan because you can find a ton of Wolverines there. Like I said, a lot of these locations are going to be based off of where you can find animals or colors of teams. And let's divert our attention back to this game where Tennessee is trailing by 6, but they have the ball and there's still a minute and a half left. They'd follow that play up by spiking the ball, so it's now 3rd and inches, but they're going to convert for the 1st down. And Michigan could be in a tough spot here. Their defense is going to have to do something, or else the reigning national champions could be eliminated from this imperialism, and Joe Milton is fighting. There's still plenty of time left too, a minute on the clock, and he is going to get them to about the 25, which is not good if you want Michigan to come out on top, but there's still a little bit farther to go. We've seen plenty offensive drives stall out at this position, so it's not like it's going to be over. And what is Joe Milton doing? That's it. That's literally why I said it wasn't over yet. He just threw a pick. And listen, I know I make a ton of blind reads whenever I play NCAA football, but this has to be one of the worst ones I've ever seen. Even I wouldn't have made the mistake of putting the ball there. And this area of the map is honestly nuts because it has 4 of the top 5 teams from this past season all in one spot touching each other. Then you got Washington just chilling on the other side of the world, happy to be away from all of it. And because all those good teams are so close to each other on the map, there's a good chance an underdog could win this imperialism, but Vanderbilt got landed on. And for the 2nd time, they have just avoided having to play in a matchup. The next time the wheel lands on them, I'm sure that they won't be as lucky. And we have Penn State going on the road to play to the west. That is not a good draw for USF, as they're going to have to defend their home territory. And why is it always the teams that have already had to play that get landed on? I think this is where the Bulls get put out. But just like they did against Alabama in real life, USF's put up a fight. And with a minute and a half left, they're only trailing by 6. I think this is the same score as the last game. 27-21 with the pressure on the Bulls to get a touchdown. It is a 3rd and 16 that was almost intercepted. And now they have to pick up this 4th down, but the halfback screen probably won't work. They still need a lot more yards and they're short. Assuming Penn State hits this field goal, there's no chance for them. And I'm sad to see the Bulls go. I figured this would probably happen though. And now Penn State's the team that's in a really good spot because both of these small blank countries are just freebies. If the arrow goes closest to them, the Nittany Lions won't even have to play. And it was about time that we got one of the US military schools. Navy got Puerto Rico because it's a US territory on the water and they're attacking Baylor. So they could be eliminated right here, and that would be a shame. They're only a 67 overall though, and I doubt the option is going to bail them out, which is why it makes no sense that they're only down by 4 with this much time left. Their quarterback has somehow threw 4 interceptions, but it's not completely over, and the Bears must have just played terribly on the offensive side of the ball, but that looks rough. I'm not very surprised by the turnover number after seeing him try to throw the ball, but Baylor sent a blitz on 4th and 6, and Navy is alive for a little bit longer in this game. They keep on sending a lot of pressure at this guy, and that was almost picked. But I believe in Ty Lavatai right now. I believe he's going to lead them down the field with a deep bomb, and that is going to also be dropped. I really want to see the military schools do good, but that just doesn't normally happen. And on 4th and 10, he is going to get the ball out, but it was off target. The Baylor defense stepped up again, and of course one of their defenders was a player of the game. This is a really rough stat line to look at, but I can't say I'm surprised that something like that happened. We still have military schools like Army left who's representing the United States, and then I threw Air Force in Germany because the US has a base over there, but thankfully the wheel just avoided Army, so instead Baylor's playing again. And this is back-to-back matchups with it just hitting the tip of FAU instead of going to Stanford. It's the same teams that keep getting put into these matches, and I have a feeling when all the dust is settled, Ohio State's going to easily take South America. Whatever happens though, there needs to be a lot of credit given to this Bears defense because FAU's had no issue scoring in Imperialism until this game, and they're so scared to play against them that they are punting it down 3 possessions with 2.5 minutes left, basically just giving up and saying Baylor can win this one. I don't know what happened to Daniel Richardson, but he didn't throw the ball well and they didn't run it well either. So the Owls are out and their generational run is over. It also means that this part of South America is thinned out out just as much as North America, and I can't believe how things have been unfolding over there. Now we have Oregon State, and I don't even remember where I threw them, but apparently they're over here in Europe and they're in Latvia because there's beavers there, attacking the Fighting Illini who are in Lithuania because one of you told me that they have a basketball player from there. I couldn't tell you who it is, but I just believe that it wasn't a lie, and only one of these orange schools is going to move on to the next round. At one point, Illinois was down 28-0, but they have fought their way back into this matchup, and with all three of their timeouts remaining, there is a small chance that they complete the 28-point comeback. However, after taking that sack, it's now 4th and 22. There's absolutely zero chance that they're able to convert, so the Beavers defense held it down for their team, and Latvia, the country of beavers, just got twice as big. Now the wheel takes us somewhere else though, and it is Florida State. So most teams are probably very worried about facing the Seminoles, but at least for now they won't have to, as this arrow is just pointing straight towards Omen. Between some of the big teams in that region though, there's no telling who will come out on top, and you already know that I had to put Northwestern somewhere up north. They're in Finland because it's north and Huskies are here, but they've drawn Sweden or Pitt, and this is a battle of the Nordic colleges. Only one of them has a real football field right now though, so that's the team that should win. And how has Pitt found themselves in this situation where they're losing by 17? I didn't think that Northwestern was going to beat them, but that's how things unfolded, so they get all of this land to themselves now. It's still really hard to tell who's going to end up controlling all of Europe, but teams better keep a close eye on Air Force because we all know what country they're based out of. It has been a while, but we are headed back down to the oceanic region, and I flooded a lot of these countries, but I didn't flood Indonesia, which is where they're about to attack. The reason UAB's there is because that's where the home of Komodo dragons are, and their logo's literally a dragon plus the colors align. It couldn't be more of a perfect match. Odds are they're about to be eliminated though because they're trailing with a little time left, and it's Jacob Zeno's fault. He's thrown 3 interceptions in this game and he doesn't have much time to redeem himself. Best case scenario from this point, he can just get them into range to throw up a Hail Mary, but he is sending a bomb deep and it's also going to be caught. Plus UAB got out of bounds, so that was perfect, but they still need to get one more yard and they are going to. What an ending we just witnessed to that fourth quarter, and their kicker is clutch enough to hit the extra point. I'm still shook at how crazy all of that was, and they started OT right. Their defense has too if they can keep Hawaii out of the end zone in the next 2 plays, and that just set up a big 4th and goal. They need about 7 yards to respond back, and it looks like they're not going to get it, so UAB actually just clutched all that. I cannot believe that Jacob Zeno actually made up for his mistakes, and he was so bad this player won player of the game with these stats. What a story we just got out of the Blazers though. That alone made me a fan, and they're literally in one of the best positions on the map. If we zoom out a little bit more, besides Louisiana and Cincinnati, no other schools can touch them, and I've decided until teams take over an entire continent, they shouldn't just cross over the middle of the ocean. That's how it's always been though. You can't just go straight through a body of water. And Boston College always gets a good spawn point, this time in Montenegro. The reason they're even there is because that country has an eagle on their flag, and also their colors are the same exact thing, but they got out of having to play. That's always been a theme for Boston College in these imperialism videos, and Alabama's going for what Northwestern just took over. They want all this land for themselves. Knowing who the Crimson Tide are representing though, we should have expected it, and Northwestern should have tried to join NATO sooner. I figured this was probably what was going to happen, but I thought they'd put up a little bit better of a fight. And of course Alabama's getting even bigger. Jalen Milroe is having an absolute blast, and NC State better keep an eye on all of their territories because they're probably next. I should have known giving the Crimson Tide that much power was not a good idea, but if they keep on growing too much, they're bound to fall at some point. Now Western Michigan's in a weird spot because somebody told me this wasn't a country, but I didn't understand it. This place has Western in the name. It's called Western Sahara, and they're attacking Kansas State. I wish I knew how to say the Wildcats country, but I think it's Mauritania, and the reason they're at that location is because that's one of the places that Wildcats live in Africa. I will say I'm a little surprised at how close this one is with 45 seconds left, and we have a deep bomb that is going to be dropped, but Kansas State could have ended it right there. That was their chance. Now there's another opportunity for Western Michigan to come back. They almost caught that one, and that was a fantastic throw on the run, stepping up into the pocket, but they almost took a sack. We've now watched 3 straight incompletions, and we might see a 4th on this play, but they did get the first, and of course the refs are going to say there was a flag on the play. It was on the left tackle. They're saying it's pass interference, and I don't know what type of bribe money Kansas State is paying to get Western Michigan representing Western Sahara out of this game, but it hasn't worked yet because they just converted on that 4th and 20 and don't take the sack. That was the last thing that you wanted to see in that situation. Now they have to spike it, and unless this Hail Mary goes for a touchdown, the Wildcats are going to get the win, but yeah, that's it. They are going to get the interception. There was a split second where I couldn't tell where that ball was going, but at the end of the day, another smaller school has been knocked out, and of all the colleges still in Africa, there's only a few of them left. It's pretty normal in these imperialisms though for the small schools to lose, and UAB almost had to play, but instead it is Central Florida. They are here at the center of the map in Central Africa playing against Washington State, and if you were wondering, UCLA UCF is representing the country, Niger. You're not gonna catch me messing up that pronunciation. And if they threw another G in there, I'd be in a lot of trouble. Anyway, we're witnessing Washington State trying to come back, but if they want to do so, they really need to get this 2-point conversion, and they do. To be honest, there was no reason for them to go for the onside kick since they still have 3 timeouts, but they can't stop the run. So UCF's practically won it, and all they have to do is get one more first down, which John Rice Plumlee really wants. I'm pretty sure the Knights kicker can hit from here too, so this one is over. Washington State is out, and that's after the Cougars got multiple good wins. Things change super quickly in Imperialism though, that's what you have to expect, and we're getting extremely close to hitting the halfway point in this Imperialism. We still have to eliminate one more team though, and that could be Iowa. I am proud of the reasoning that I dropped them in Switzerland, and it's because Switzerland's the one country that has 0 offense in war. They just set up for defense. I even originally had Iowa in Australia because of one of their punters, but once I thought of that, they just got dropped in the middle of Switzerland, and now they're attacking Syracuse. Being a neutral country, they shouldn't even be on the attack right now, but they are losing. And why are they spiking it with over a minute and a half left in this game? Now they're coming out in a power formation, throwing the ball away, and on 4th and 3, they're going to hand it off, which did work. I guess that's what they need to do. LaShawn Williams Jr. currently has 29 carries in this game. They have been feeding him the rock, and Cade McNamara gets them to midfield. They do have more first downs than the Orange, but they've only been able to score 10 points, and on 2nd and 9, there's nowhere to go. It's always interesting trying to see Iowa's offense succeed, but now that they're on a 4th down, I don't think they're going to, and they have just moved the chains. They still have 40 seconds too, so that's plenty of time to reach the end zone. But the one thing not going for them is they have 0 timeouts, and instead of spiking the ball, one of the linemen moved early. You do not want a false start penalty there. They had a pretty much guaranteed first down, and getting out of bounds was massive, but you don't want to run the ball with 20 seconds left. It did not catch the Syracuse defense off guard, and on 4th and 5, what are they doing? There is a reason they only scored 10 points in this game, and Syracuse / the Netherlands has won another. To get us to the midway point in this video, they successfully invaded Switzerland, and this is what the world map looks like with half of the colleges knocked out. We're still a long way away from finishing this video though, and I'm pretty sure that I put Eastern Michigan in Nigeria. The reason for that is because their colors line up and they're gonna attack Vanderbilt. So the Commodores are finally forced to play. They started in Ghana because of the star on their flag, and I don't know why they ever replaced that logo with the one that they have on the scoreboard, but they deserve to lose because of it. They're probably going to after that play, considering Eastern Michigan's now down at the 15, and all they're gonna do is hand this ball off to set up for a field goal. Vanderbilt tried to ice them, but it did not work, and the Eagles have just won their first game. That means they've added on a decent bit to their territory, but in the grand scheme of things, we know it's not that much, because even when you zoom out on Africa, they're not that big. With this many programs left though, that's kinda where you wanna be, and I know that we haven't landed on Tulane yet in this video. They're in Portugal attacking USC, who's in Spain, just because of their colors and history, and the reason the Green Wave got Portugal is because back in 1755, there was a massive tsunami and earthquake that took the life of 60,000 people there. A tsunami like that lines up perfectly with the Green Wave, and they're fighting super hard to make sure Portugal doesn't get wiped out again. With 2 minutes left though, it looks like the Trojans are going to go up by 1, and that's not the end of the world because all the Green Wave need to win is a field goal. I think they can get that. There's still plenty of time left, and they're going to take this to the 40. So it seems like the only thing that could stop Tulane now would be terrible clock management, and on this next play, Michael Pratt has a clean pocket where he throws it straight to the Trojans. I don't know what he was thinking, but now with a minute left, they have 3 timeouts, and they're not going to stop the run well. So unless they get super lucky, USC is going to win. All the Trojans need is 1 more yard, and they're going to get it, which means Caleb Williams in Spain are not out yet. The colors of the team just make it too much sense for them to be that country, and unfortunately for Portugal, they weren't able to withstand from that attack. Headed back to the wheel, this time it's going to take us back to Arizona, and they dealt with the Pirates in Somalia earlier on in this video, but now they have a new task, and that's handling the Tigers that are in Kenya. It should be pretty obvious that that's the reason Missouri got that country, but there's also Tigers in other places in Africa, not just Kenya. If there's anything we can learn from this, it's the fact that Arizona is super strong, because with a minute left in this game, Missouri's only been able to come up with 6 points, and even if they get into the end zone here, this one's probably already over. Luther Burden III was able to get open, but they're still going to have to recover an onside kick, and we've seen it happen before, but it's like 1 in every 15 times, so it wasn't supposed to happen there. That means Arizona's won another Imperialism game, and with 2 victories, they're starting to become a little bit bigger of a threat. Missouri's certainly no slouch. That wasn't an easy win, and poor Troy is going to have to attack somebody else. They've been landed on multiple times, and now they're going down to Mississippi State, who I dropped in Sudan, and it might be my most elaborate reasoning yet. The country Sudan has had the most coups in Africa, 17 of them since 1952, and since Mississippi State's mascot is Bully the Bulldog, I made the connection of bullying to overthrow the government because they've done it so much. It might be a stretch, but I thought with 17 coup attempts in 75 years, it was a good good fit, and on 2nd and 8, Gunnar Watson takes the sack. He's trying to lead Troy down the field since they're trailing by 5 with a minute left, but he's not doing a good job of it, and they're being smart by punting the ball on 4th and 19 since they still have all 3 of their timeouts left. Now, they could have aimed for the sidelines to pin Mississippi State back, but they didn't, and they're going to hand this one off to get almost no gain. There's a very good chance the Trojans get the ball back, just 2 more stops are needed, and on 3rd and 5, they decided to run it again instead of passing, but Will Rogers went to the side. He might have had a first down if he just ran straight. I'm not sure what he was thinking, but Troy has been gifted another opportunity like we thought they would, and here we go. Gunnar Watson's going to complete the first pass, but they don't get out of bounds, so they had to waste it down spiking the ball, and now they're going for the left side of the field where there's an open receiver, and they're inside the 10. The Trojans are fighting super hard, and with 16 seconds left, Gunnar Watson gets them into the end zone, or the 1. They're marking it a yard short, and now they're rushing back to the line to spike the ball, so it sets up 1 4th and goal play, and this is it right here. I would just hand the ball off, but they're going to throw it instead, and it's caught. Mississippi State just lost in the final second, and what a remarkable moment for anybody that's rooting for Troy. Like you might expect, they're really starting to take over that region, but Florida State could be knocking on their door soon, and we get to head back to TCU, who's in Panama. They've already won once, but now they're attacking Ole Miss, who's in Nicaragua, and not only does that country's colors match this sick jersey, but there's another connection too, considering that Ole Miss has an on-field mascot called a land shark. Nicaragua's biggest lake doesn't have land sharks, but it does have sharks in it, and there have been some shark attacks there, which you wouldn't expect out of a freshwater lake. Anyway, with less than a minute left, Ole Miss is trying to tie up the game, and they just did with that 2-point conversion. I have a feeling that this one's probably going to overtime, but TCU still has time to get a field goal too, so we'll see what happens, and look at that. Warren Thompson fought for a first down and to get out of bounds, which was really impressive, but TCU's probably not going to hike the ball, and it's so dumb that they'd run out the rest of the clock, because now they're going to have to face off against Ole Miss in overtime. They could always get a stop on this drive though, so we'll see what happens. It's 3rd and 7, and they do. That means all the Rebels can do here is kick a field goal, and TCU could get the win with a touchdown. They've already gotten pretty close, but they need a little bit more, and on 2nd and goal, they're back to running the ball, but it's not working. That means they have to pick up 10 yards on 3rd down, and they're not going to, so we are headed to double OT. Now that there's no more pressure, of course they're going to score a touchdown, but the Horned Frogs could be okay, because after a holding call and some bad plays, Ole Miss is on a 4th and 19. They have to score a touchdown here, and it looks like Jackson Dart is going to not find somebody, but he was very close to completing that pass, and the TCU defender just saved the day. I did not see that coming. TCU wasn't great this past season, but they're playing well at the moment, and this is how Central America is shaping up. Compared to the rest of the world, it's a lot less chaotic over there, and I can't remember where I dropped Wyoming, but there was a good reason. It turns out they're in Thailand because there's a lot of horses in this region of Asia, and the arrows force them to attack the Gamecocks. They're doing pretty well though, because with 30 seconds left, they're about to be in field goal range, and assuming they manage the clock right, this should be going to overtime. They might even have a chance at getting a touchdown, and if they did, that would be remarkable. They would get the win over South Carolina. After that bad pass on 2nd and goal, they're going to have somebody in the end zone, and I can't believe this is how South Carolina is about to fall, but it is all over for them unless Spencer Rattler can get a touchdown here, and they don't. What a performance from Andrew Peasley, and there is a new king over here on this part of the map. The bottom right side of it is so weak, but I guarantee one of those teams will make the top 10 because location is everything, and they've been put in a really good spot. Now we've landed on Rutgers, and I had to place them in Italy because New Jersey, where Rutgers is located, has one of the largest Italian populations in the country. Almost 15% of the people that live in that state have that in their heritage, so Italy equals Rutgers, and there were also a lot of Knights in Italy too. They're doing pretty well too, considering with a minute left they're up by 4, and that sack on Garrett Schrader is going to make it a 2nd and 16 for the Orange, which is not going to be an issue for them. They just picked that up like it was nothing, and now he is picking apart this defense, so Rutgers better start to show a little bit of resistance, and this one is going to lead to a tackle in bounds. That forced Syracuse to spike the ball, making it a 3rd and 7, where Garrett Schrader had a very clean pocket, but they didn't get enough there, making it 4th and 1, and he is going to go for a big play, which worked out. The legacy drive from Garrett Schrader has made sure that the Orange stay in it a bit longer, because Rutgers is not going to get 79 yards on this play, and they even fumbled the football away. Their lineman has picked it up, but he couldn't make it to the end zone. That's another impressive win for the Netherlands, and Syracuse is representing them well. They took over what LSU did in Europe, and now they're expanding further on it, but at some point their run's going to end if they keep getting bigger. Now we have Western Kentucky, who's in one of the Stan countries, and they're the Hilltoppers in Kyrgyzstan because there's a lot of hills there, but they're attacking south, going up against Duke, who I dropped in Afghanistan. The reason I put them there is a certain group started in that country that ends in ban, and with how terrible and disgusting they are, I thought the best association with them would have to be a devil. With Duke's mascot being a blue devil and just most fans hating them, it was a match not made in heaven, and this is going to go 0-1. Western Kentucky is getting very close to scoring, but even if they do, they're going to need a 2-point conversion and then another 8 with an onside kick, so that was never going to happen, and it looks like the Hilltoppers have been wiped off of the map. As someone that's from Kentucky, it would have been nice to see Western do well, but they didn't, and I can't remember where I dropped the Runnin' Rebels. It was one of the ones that was a stretch, but I said they got hungry because of their colors, and because there wasn't a country in Slovakia, they just got a little bit more land. The good news with all these open countries, though, is it's very easy to take the map to College Football 25, and we're staying in Europe, headed to Spain, who is attacking up north. This is for a lot considering they're going after everything Syracuse has claimed, and they're going into this one as a 90 overall. We all know that USC was not that good in real life, but that's what the final revamped roster had them as, and this one was not even close. Caleb Williams put up his 4 touchdowns and then got subbed out in the third quarter, so it was him who delivered all these new countries for Spain and the Trojans. And when you zoom out to the full world map, besides Alabama, USC has the largest territory in Europe. There's still over 50 teams left though, so that's important to note because it's still a little bit too early to expand a lot, and there's so many small countries around Oklahoma that are open for them to claim. I really don't know what the best spot on the map is. We've never done a simulation like this, but it could be in Africa, and this wheel is going up to the northwest. It landed on Arizona, but it wants them to attack Troy, and I don't know how many more of these attacks Troy can handle. They've done a really good job in this Imperialism with a stunning win over Mississippi State, but not all hope is lost yet as they're in this one with 90 seconds left. They just had a terrible play, but on 2nd and 10, they're going to find the end zone, and tacking on the extra point means that they're going up by 1. That puts a lot of pressure on Noah Fafita to come up clutch here, and he just completed that first pass for 7 yards, but he was about to take a sack, and then he threw an interception straight to Troy. They're going to intercept it and take it all the way to the 33, which means this one is over if they get 1 first down, and they're coming close. I can't believe he just turned it over like that. I was not expecting it, and that is going to be it. So the freshman has caused Arizona to be eliminated. I do think Troy is in a lot of trouble though, just seeing how much land that they've expanded to, and when you border that many countries, you're bound to be attacked by somebody. We're finally headed to Mexico with San Diego State, and the Aztecs want a piece of the United States going after Army. We need our boys to hold up strong here and defend our home territory, but this could be where the college that's representing the United States falls. For their time, the Aztecs in that Mexican area were very skilled, but they haven't been able to put away Army yet, and this is going to make it a 4th down. With only 1 timeout left, the Black Knights have got to convert, and it looks like they are going to just get enough to have the first, plus a lot more actually. So Army is still in this Imperialism, and on 1st and 10 now, they're going to have plenty of time to take a sack. Then they're going to spike the ball on 2nd and 13 just to stop the clock, but before they could get it off, there was a false start, and this is a disaster. They're starting to collapse unless this run can go for a big gain, and it kinda did. 3rd and 9 is manageable. Bryson Daly this time is going to go over to his running back, but Army only has 20 seconds to go another 33 yards, and that is going to end it. Jalen Maiden threw 2 interceptions, but the Aztecs have still taken over the United States, and that has to be the biggest change color-wise to the map that we've seen so far. It's also the exact moment that we've gotten down to just 50 colleges left, and I'm on day 3 of filming this, plus it took me 10 hours to make the map, so this has already been like a 4-day project, but we keep on pushing. If Cincinnati's going to attack up here, it's got to be to Wyoming, and the reason that they're in Malaysia is because that's where a lot of bearcats are from. They're actually a pretty endangered species, and Wyoming had a chance to get rid of even more of them, but they weren't able to do it. After holding the Bearcats to a field goal, they're still down by 16 with 30 seconds left, and Cincinnati just got a lot of land. I don't know how long Emory Jones is going to be able to hold on to it, but we've been witnessing some pretty huge changes recently, and over here in the Eastern Hemisphere, there's a new giant. Somebody still needs to challenge both Alabama and Michigan though, and if the Trojans are able to run through Europe, it might be them. Their next opponent is Air Force, who I put in Germany because of an Air Force base, and I'm sure they love this opportunity to conquer a lot of Europe. There's a lot of forces against them though, so we'll see if they come out on top. And I can't believe what we're witnessing. It is a 31-0 game. Air Force didn't score a single point, and Germany didn't have what it took to handle Caleb Williams. That result leaves us with 0 US military schools still on the map, and aside from UAB in the oceanic region, I don't really have anybody to root for. I said I'd pull for the Blazers though, and it just landed on Cincinnati again, so they're going for more territory, and this time it's Iowa State. And on paper, things are very even. The Cyclones do have the advantage though, playing in their homeland, and with a minute and a half left, they have an 8-point lead over Cincinnati, but this one isn't over yet. If the Bearcats are able to drive down the entire field and then get the 2-point conversion, they could send this game to overtime, but we have seen colleges struggle in this situation before, so that's a lot to expect. They just got out of bounds though, which should really help them, and they should have done it again. It looked like that player was just avoiding the sidelines instead of going for it. Emory Jones almost broke out of there, but TJ Tampa brought him down, and on 3rd and 5, he's thrown it off of his back foot, which was actually caught. Now they're saying he was an inch short, so it's 4th and inches, but if they pick this up, they're still in the running, and TJ Tampa just single-handedly won that game. Iowa State just got all of the land that the Bearcats got, and that happened so quick, but it's caused most of Asia to now be fully red. It's getting pretty difficult to make out where all the borders are at, but there's a lot of countries that have that issue in real life anyway, and we have not landed on James Madison yet in imperialism. The Dukes are attacking Troy, and I put them in the country Libya. The reason for that is a Duke is a British thing, and the British have controlled that territory in the past. I feel like in making this video, I've learned more about history than I did throughout my entire schooling, and all the little facts have been super fun to come up with, even if some of the reasonings on these are very dark. At the end of the day, they're all just jokes, but if I made you laugh with one of them, you might as well subscribe and look at this great game. Troy is putting on the comeback that they need, like they've done in past matchups in this, because they're currently trailing by 4 and they have to score a touchdown to take the lead. They still have 50 seconds and they're already in the red zone though, so they should be okay. And if they do it too quickly, they're going to leave James Madison with too much time. However, that was just as bad now because they're spiking the ball, and it is 3rd and goal from the 13-yard line where Gunnar Watson goes down. I don't know if they're going to be able to pick this up, but this is their final chance, and they do. So somehow Troy finds a way once again, and what a catch this was. I'm going to add them to the teams I'm rooting for in this video. They've put on such good shows, and I know it probably won't happen, but the Trojans deserve to make the top 10 with how many battles they've won. A lot of teams have challenged them, tried to take them down, but they're currently allergic to losing, and that's another fallen country. If your team is still on the wheel by now, they have a decent shot at making it all the way, because all it takes is not getting landed on like Ohio State just did. I put them in Columbia, and they're going to be attacking Baylor for South America, but the reason they got Columbia is because they play in Columbus, Ohio, and looking back on it, it probably would have made more sense to put South Carolina there, because that college is located in a city called Columbia. It was a missed opportunity, but I might do this again on the new game, and I don't know why Baylor just punted down 17 with 40 seconds left in this game. They just decided they were done, and that means Ohio State has taken a lot of territory. Kyle McCord played alright, but the real star of the show was their defense. And when we get a full look at this map for the first time in a few turns, things are going to look so much differently than they did. Red colleges have taken over again, controlling like 50% of the world, and pretty much every team on the map that has the color gray representing them was also red, but I couldn't have too much of the same color on one map. We finally have another challenge for Alabama though, as Oregon State's been pointed towards them, and this is a hard climate to attack into. There's so much on the line though, the Beavers could change how the world works, and there's no way I'm seeing this right. It is a tie game with a minute and a half left. Oregon State's also already in field goal range, and I've never seen the computer act as smart as they are right now. They've been chewing the clock just to set up for a game-winning field goal, so the final 2 minutes just completely disappear. That's when I like to hop into these matchups, but clearly I should have done it with like 3 minutes left, and Jalen Milroe's gonna have to pull off a miracle with 12 seconds left if he wants Alabama to stay alive. They might do it. It is possible to get 20 yards in 6 seconds, but instead he decided to scramble with it, and he got down with just enough time to call a timeout. 1 second left, he's getting off the Hail Mary, and it is going to be intercepted by the Beavers. They've pulled it off. I didn't think they were going to do that, but a rough game offensively from the Crimson Tide and a solid performance from DJ Uiagalelei was all it took to knock out one of the top powers in this imperialism. That's really going to change how things play out, because I wasn't sure who was going to beat the Crimson Tide besides Michigan, and currently the Beavers have the largest territory in the world. I'm sure that'll change though. There's still a decent bit of colleges left, and Fresno State's the one team that I forgot on the map originally. Their colors are similar to the Dominican Republic, so that's why they're there attacking UTSA, and the Roadrunners already have the other half of the island they're on in Haiti. Beating Miami set UTSA up pretty nicely in the Caribbean, and with 2 minutes left, the Roadrunners are trailing by 5 points to Fresno State. They're not out of it yet though, because they're on a 3rd and 6. They still have all 3 of their timeouts, and I'm pretty sure that they're about to punt it. Well, never mind, they'd rather go for it. A field goal wouldn't end the game for them either, but that was not the right play, and Fresno State is currently sitting in such a good position. On 2nd and 11, they hand it off again, of course, but it looks like they're going to settle for a field goal and then trust their defense one final time. So we'll see if Frank Harris can do anything with a minute left on the clock. I wouldn't doubt the Roadrunners yet. We have seen crazier things happen in some of these games just in this imperialism alone. And on 3rd and 1, it looks like he's just going to go back to number 9, who gets them the first down. That's their really good tight end, so it would make sense that he continues to feed it in his direction, and Frank Harris just got them down to the 30-yard line. It took him a little bit to spike the ball, but he eventually did, and now this ball is going straight to Fresno State. So that literally could have been it right there, and I don't know what he was thinking. 4th and 1, game on the line, and there's going to be a player that's getting out of bounds. And when you have no timeouts left and there's only 20 seconds in the game, that is a big deal. One little mistake could ruin everything that they've worked for, but I'm rooting for overtime. This would be an absolute thriller, and the refs are saying that that guy didn't get out of bounds in time. It all comes down to this last play, and Frank Harris is going to have to throw it on the run, but he doesn't. So Fresno State holds on to take all of their islands. Just when we didn't need any more red in this area, we got it, so I had to make them gray. That's just going to make them stand out a little bit better. And unfortunately for them, they're kinda in the middle of all the colleges surrounding them. Odds are they're gonna be under attack again pretty soon, but I didn't think they would be the ones that were doing the attacking, and they're going straight down here for Ohio State's land. This would be crazy if they actually pull it off, because aside from Stanford, they'd take all of South America, and I don't even know what I'm currently witnessing with this sim. I wasn't paying much attention, but at one point it was 35-14, and Mikey Keene played really well, while Kyle McCord did too, but I don't know what the issue was. I guess it has to be turnovers. Maybe one of them went back for a pick six, and both teams just struggled to score in the third and fourth quarter. That was the last thing that I thought was going to happen there, but another big school's fallen, and if somebody doesn't get both Michigan and Washington out of this, we might have a rematch of the national championship to take over the world. Now, Buffalo's interesting because I think I gave them Iceland, and that's just because it's super cold up there, plus they're blue, but they're attacking Greenland, who is owned by Washington. I literally just said somebody needs to get the Huskies out, but if this happened after the Ohio State upset, that would make no sense, and I'm watching this sim a lot closer just in case it does happen. Well, I can tell you that it took Buffalo 4 quarters to even get any points on the board. They're obviously gonna lose, but it would have been crazy to have back-to-back upsets, and Michael Penix is set up to run both of the Americas. It's kinda crazy, but there's only 8 teams that's left on this side of the map, and there's 33 on the other, but those continents also have more countries. One of them has Wisconsin in it, I think it's Poland, and they're headed south to try and take out the running Rebels. I think both of these teams are in their locations because of their colors, so nothing deep there, but we'll see which one comes out on top. It could be UNLV as they approach midfield, down by 5 with 30 seconds left. Jaden Mava is trying to take off, and he needs to head over to the sidelines. You could tell that he was trying to get there at the end of that play, but he just could not make it, and with a clean pocket, there is plenty of time to find somebody open, and instead he threw it into double coverage. 4 turnovers is going to lose the Rebels the game, and that's one less program in this crowded part of Europe. I need to get deeper into history to figure out why there's so many small countries in that space, because when you compare it to something like the US, it blows my mind, and TCU is sick of being in this area. They are trying to take all of Fresno State's territory. We knew once they took that land over, there'd be challengers for it, but the Bulldogs are coming off of a massive win over Ohio State, so you would have expected them to play a lot better than they did, but they got their score doubled. TCU's defense just had a really solid day, and it's crazy that they won by that much considering Chandler Morris threw 2 interceptions in the matchup. The Horned Frogs are now in a really good position, and I don't think UTEP or Stanford's going to give them many issues. They might run into a problem if they have to play Florida or UCLA though, and it was about time that I got to explain North Carolina's spot. They're in Estonia, attacking south, and since North is in their name, I put them in a northmost country, but the really big takeaway from all of this is what's on the line. If they win, they're going to take over the biggest piece of land right now, and they've done just that, as somehow the Beavers could beat Alabama, but not them. DJ was just a little bit inconsistent, and that hurt them, so we have seen another very large change to the map, and it almost looks like all the glaciers just melted and flooded this area. It is nice to see some other teams that aren't red do well though, and it was only a matter of time before we went to Marshall. They're in Pakistan, and besides India, they have the 2nd most buffaloes in Asia, so as the Thundering Herd, it made a lot of sense for me to drop them there. They might not be able to withstand an attack from a cyclone though, and I was wrong. With 46 seconds left, it looks like Iowa State is losing by 4 points, and they just ended it. I mean, with 3 timeouts, they could still get the ball back, and they do, but Marshall doesn't even want to give them a chance. They're going for it on 4th and 4, and what on earth are they thinking? They just gave them the ball at midfield, which almost automatically puts them in field goal range. They almost deserve to lose, but they get another interception on the 2nd defensive play we've watched, and I can see why they're going to win this football game. 4 turnovers is a lot to overcome, and Rocco was responsible for 3 of them, but neither of these quarterbacks played well. I can't keep up with all these changes though. We just had another one, and the map finally looks like it has a little bit of life to it again. There's a lot of large territories that are represented by a different color, and Arkansas is another team that we haven't seen before. They're in Burkina Faso attacking eastern Michigan, and the whole reason they got that country is because of pigs. It was a hard connection to find, but they're one of the biggest pig producers in Africa, and with a minute and a half left, eastern Michigan's in trouble. They're in the game technically, but they have to go 98 yards down the field if they want to win, and now they have less than 90 seconds to do so, but at least they were able to get off of the 2-yard line, and their quarterback's trying. They then spike the ball on their next play, setting up this 3rd and 1 where Samson Evans gets caught, and I thought he was about to bust off a big one there, but he just couldn't get free. They would get out of bounds though, allowing them to stop the clock, and Anais Smith is going to try and scramble again, but it really hurts whenever you're not able to reach the marker and stop the clock for a little bit. And I'm dumb, this guy is named Austin Smith, not Anais Smith. I'm pretty sure Anais Smith plays for Texas A&M. Anyway, after that 29-yard completion, Eastern Michigan has a chance, and you can't take a sack in that position. Now it's 3rd and 15, and it looks like they're just going to go over to their running back, who's going to be tackled in bounds unless he can just get out here, which he does. And Jalen Jackson fought so hard to do that, but they still have to get 11 yards here, and they do. Eastern Michigan basically has 2 plays to reach the end zone. They still have one of their timeouts remaining too, so it's a good thing they saved it. On the final play of the game, they've decided to hand it off, and that is such a terrible way to lose. They marched 96 of the 98 yards down the field, and in the end, they let Arkansas take the victory. That was going to be such a hype moment if they were able to clutch up at the end, but instead they were wiped off of Africa. That and Europe are where a bulk majority of the countries still standing remain, and UAB's in such a good spot, but they got landed on. They would get bailed out though, because that arrow just points past Temple's land and then gives them all of the Philippines, so now they control like 90% of the oceanic region. They were almost just forced to play in another game, but instead the wheel takes us over to UCLA, and if they're attacking up from El Salvador, it has to be against TCU. The reason I gave them that country is because their colors align and the weather has to be nice like it is in LA, but then you all told me a lot of people from El Salvador also immigrate to LA, so that one had 3 different reasons, and the Bruins are in a really good position assuming this is not intercepted. With a minute and a half left, they're only trailing by 1, and all Dante Moore has to do is get them into field goal range, but he just missed that throw, and on 3rd and 10, he's going to go in the flat to his running back. It is important to note that UCLA still has all 3 of their timeouts, so if they don't pick this up, the game isn't completely over. But now that's irrelevant because they got past the marker, getting a new set of downs, and what is he doing? He keeps throwing it straight to the defenders, and he is about to take a sack, and that's going to be ruled as a fumble. Normally it's not, but that time it was, and it cost them. I guess there is a reason for them to still have all 3 of their timeouts, but that's a run for a first, so it is over, and TCU hangs on to get another win. Chandler Morris does not want to go down. He wants this Imperialism title, and compared to all of the land that TCU already has, you're not even going to notice this. Apparently there's only 35 teams left, so we are getting closer to the end, and Duke's already been able to take over some territory, but now they have to go on the road to the big house. They're definitely in for an uphill battle, but we know who they're representing, so they probably won't follow any rules, and I guess you could label both of these teams as cheaters. It's also a close battle, with Michigan only being up by 7 with a minute and a half left, and on 3rd and 2, Riley Leonard gets tackled for a 5-yard loss. Now on 4th and 6, they go with another run, and Duke just cost themselves the game. Even though they'd hold Michigan to a field goal, that makes it a 2-possession one, so this is completely over. Like expected, they came out on top, and between Michigan, Georgia, and Florida State, there's still no telling which of those colleges is going to control this region. I guess it could be somebody like Marshall or Troy too, but they're underdogs. And honestly, my reason for Arkansas State is terrible. Red Wolves are very rare, so they are not in South Sudan, but of the 6 colors in their flag, 3 of them come from Arkansas State, and I just didn't want a giant empty country in the middle of Africa. With a minute left, it looks like Arkansas State is trailing by 6, so that's good for Troy, but if they're gonna win, their defense still needs to step up, and they're doing it. Now it's 3rd down, and that's where the halfback screen's gonna come out, and it looks like the blocks have lined up the way that they needed to. They're getting to the 43. We normally don't see stuff like that happen with halfback screens, but he looked quick, and now the interception is just gonna ruin that amazing play by the running back. Troy has gotten the win over Arkansas State, and 3 turnovers to 0 was the difference between these teams. There's something about Gunnar Watson and Troy that just keeps winning now, and it could be their defense that forced 3 turnovers too. This could be turning into the most impressive run that we've ever seen from a small school in Imperialism, and the wheels landed on them so many times, but it hasn't mattered. Now we have Nebraska, whose reasoning was super odd, and they're representing Romania attacking NC State. The reason they got that country is, at least in Europe, Romania is one of the top corn producers, and that's the best thing I could find. To connect some of these schools to these countries, I'm stretching a lot, but it's gotten us some good games, and Nebraska's stuck on a 3rd and 11 after spiking the ball that they're not going to pick up. The Cornhuskers are struggling. The game will be over if this is short, and they only have 1 timeout left, so Nebraska's going to lose. That's what I would have expected though out of NC State, because they're not a bad team, even if I've never watched them play a game in my life. All their fans are saying they're supposed to be really good this year though, so that could change, and this might be where Washington takes over all of North America. If they're going to attack in this direction, San Diego State's the closest opponent, and there's only one thing the Aztecs have going for them. We have seen being the home team make a difference in the past, and that just wasn't the case in this one. San Diego State's going to lose by 23 points, and that's not good. It was boring, but we knew what Michael Penix was going to do, and the Huskies have so much land that they're now the biggest territory in the world again. At the moment, basically all of the Americas are purple, and that's remarkable because the map used to be full of red giants. Stanford's going to have a really good opportunity here though if this lands the right way, and it did, forcing them to attack TCU. With 1 win, they could take over a lot of the map, and that would add even more chaos to this Imperialism. So far, the Cardinal have taken advantage of their opportunity because they have a lead with 46 seconds left, but TCU's moving it down the field, and all they need's a field goal. I don't know why Chandler Morris would throw that ball out of bounds to a receiver that wasn't even standing in bounds, but maybe the Stanford defense is just doing a really good job on all their wide receivers. And here we go. It is 4th and 3. They are running the option, and Chandler Morris is going to get enough. That was a very close call. I know if you're a Horned Frogs fan, you were very nervous about it, and he just fumbled it away. Stanford has picked it up, and that is game. Who would have thought? Stanford comes out on top in the end, and they've just taken pretty much all of South America. The only thing that they don't have is a couple of schools that are up in the Central America region, and with just 30 colleges remaining now, the map continues to change. A third of the teams left still haven't had to play a game yet, and Miami, Ohio is one of those up in Europe. Because of their colors, they're in Denmark and they're attacking North Carolina, so they have an opportunity to pull off an insane upset, but if they're going to do it, they're going to have to play really well. I think we can see that's not what happened here, as they're going to lose by 35 points to the Tar Heels, and Drake May went off throwing for 6 touchdowns and almost 350 yards. I think if anything's going to hold back North Carolina, it's going to be their location, because they're playing really well, but they have so much territory, they're bound to play a lot. At least they know no matter where this lands, Colorado can't face them, and there's buffaloes in the Ivory Coast, so that's their country, but they've avoided facing off against somebody. The benefit of having a lot of blank countries around you is so big, and Virginia has that luxury too, but only in one direction, and the wheel did not set them up for success, putting them against Oklahoma. The country they're in is called Zambia, and they have British ties, just like Cavaliers do, so that's why I gave them that country, and there should be no reason that they're only down by 6 points with this much time left. The Cavaliers are normally not very good at football, and Oklahoma is. They forced the fumble, they're also going to pick it up, so they pretty much just got the game-sealing stop, but they still have to make this field goal to go up by 2 possessions, and they do. After doing that, they should be fine, and it was about time that the Sooners got another win. With guys like Drake Stoops, this team could go the distance, but at some point before then, they're going to have to face Penn State, and I'll be curious to see what happens there. If there's 2 powerhouses left in Africa, it's those 2, and that might be disrespectful to Kansas State, but it's hard for me to see them as a good team. They could go 10-2, and I'd still think of them as a 6-6 program. And headed up to Europe, we have NC State attacking Nevada in Bulgaria. They got Bulgaria because just like NC State's location, there's wolves there, and we're about to find out who has the greater wolf pack. I'd say it's probably the one that doesn't play on a soccer field, but we'll see about that. That's going to be a huge deep pass from Nevada's quarterback, and their wide receiver is gone all the way to the other side of the field. They just went box to box with one play, which is really impressive to do whenever you play soccer. Now they're in the end zone, and the pressure is now on MJ Morris and NC State to at least get in field goal range. He's already been off target once, but I'm sure he'll step up in the pocket and find somebody this time, making it a 3rd and manageable. He's got 4 wide receivers out there in a spread formation, and he did have one on a corner route. That was a tough throw to make. There were a lot of Nevada defenders in the area, but he just went straight to one, and that's going to end the game for the Wolfpack. I don't know why he tried to force it into that window. He's playing like me, but I am not a Division I quarterback, and this doesn't shake up much, but it does change how many gray teams are left in Europe. Recently, the colors have gotten a lot better than they were, and it looks like the wheel is now going to take us to a team that reps red. Stanford just took over all of South America a few turns ago, and now they're going up to this group of islands called the U.S. Virgin Islands. Somebody's island was in that territory, and it correlates with UTEP's mascot. So going into this game, I have to root for Stanford to come out on top. They're struggling to put this one away though, as with a minute and a half left, UTEP is only trailing by 4, and even the refs are trying to get the Miners out of there. They just called clipping, which is going to bring that play back, and now that it's 1st and 14, UTEP's going back to the air where this goes out of bounds. I hate that I associated them with that country, because now I have to root against them, and I'm sure there's other islands there that are good, so we'll think more positively. They're going to take the sack though, and assuming Stanford can stop them on 4th and 17, this one is all over. However, under crazy pressure, this quarterback somehow just made the throw of his life. The ball dropped perfectly into his receiver's hands, and Gavin Hardison does not want to be eliminated yet. He wants to keep his team in it. After spiking the ball, it is now 3rd and 3, and on this play they get another first, but time's winding down. They're not even past midfield yet, so they got to pick up their pace a little bit more. That's exactly what they have to be hoping for. They're out there in 5 wide, but it still takes them like 5 seconds once they get to the line to snap it. They better step out of bounds, and I'm really hoping the AI on the new game is smart enough to make decisions like that. The ball has been intercepted though, and Stanford has taken down the Miners. Of all the connections I had to make in this video, that one was just on an uncomfortable level, but with them off the map now, the world is a much better place. We're also just 1 spot away from having our top 25, and we've talked about San Jose State, but they haven't had to play. They started in North Macedon, taking Kosovo, and now Serbia, but because a lot of those countries in that region were so small, I didn't fill them in. Maybe this is the time that Colorado gets stuck playing though, and they're trying to take everything that UCF has built up. A win here would put them in crossfire all across Africa, but you have to win to stay in it, so they're going for it. With 2 minutes left, the Buffaloes have a 4-point lead, but they have to rely on their defense while Shedeur Sanders sings perfect timing over on the sidelines, and there we go. That one tackle from Travis Hunter makes it 4th and 3, and it looks like John Rice Plumlee is going to go through the air to find his slant. Javon Baker's the receiver that UCF leads on whenever they need somebody, and I'm keeping an eye on him to see if they go back in his direction, but they found someone else. It's no longer looking very good for Colorado as they give up a touchdown, and we're about to see how clutch Shedeur Sanders really is. That pass didn't go for much, but we all know that his offensive line is not going to hold up for very long, and with blocking like that, you can't expect Dylan Edwards to get much there. Now they're throwing it out of bounds, bringing up a 4th and 4. They're in a spread formation, and he is going to have a running back in the flat that he's not going for. He wants the deep shot, and it is also dropped. So I figured it was just going to be some random wide receiver, but it is Travis Hunter, and he's on the cover of College Football 25. A great two-way player, and he probably would have reeled that in real life, but he couldn't in that situation, and Colorado's been eliminated. You all are probably saying that he did everybody a favor, though, by dropping that ball, because it seems like almost everyone hates Colorado. And here we have the map of the top 25 teams in worldwide college football imperialism. By this point in the video, we've watched over 100 teams get eliminated, and there's still another 24 that aren't going to make it to the end. One of them will probably be Marshall, since Michigan's about to attack them, and it was pretty clear that this day would eventually come. I will give Marshall credit, though. For a small school, they've been putting out sick visit pictures, and somehow that must be correlated with them being up by 7 with 2 minutes left in this game. I don't get it. Michigan should have won this one by so much, and what is Blake Corum doing? It's now 4th and 8, and if the Wolverines don't pick this up, they're most likely about to lose. They're going to be well short, and I don't even know what to say. They still have all 3 of their timeouts, but Marshall is just gashing them up the middle, and the Thundering Herd just pulled off one of the best upsets we've seen. I think that has to go as the biggest one in this video, and we've had a few of them, but shout out to Cam Fancher. I hope he's still in College Football 25, because right now Marshall is still in the running to be the first team I rebuild on that new game, and I've been having a blast on Twitter eliminating a few colleges every day. Anything to get through this last month before we get the new game, and now we're headed to Arkansas, who I've already explained is in their country because they have a ton of pigs, and with the arrow pointing down in this direction, they get to fill in Cameroon. I've heard of a lot of these countries because I keep up with soccer every time the World Cup comes around, but I never knew where most of them were, and the wheel landed on Arkansas again. It wants them to play so bad, and UCF's gonna have to defend again, but this time they shouldn't struggle as much. No offense to Arkansas, in my lifetime they've just never been good at football, and as long as they don't win a championship in college basketball, I'll always appreciate the Razorbacks. They took Coach Cal off of Kentucky's hands, and he had a good run with us, but it is time for the Mark Pope era. As teams keep getting eliminated in Africa, there's only 5 left in the continent, and the next college that's gonna have to play is Georgia Tech. Now they're known for being one of the smartest schools in the country, so I put them in Japan because I looked it up, and apparently Japan has the highest IQ of every country in the world. I can guarantee you I didn't see the name of the United States atop any of those lists, so we got some work to do in that department to catch up, but if they have the smartest people in the world, I'm gonna give them Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets have calculated themselves really well in this matchup too, because with about a minute left, they're only down by 7, they have the ball, and they could send it to OT. Now if they keep passing for 3-yard gains, that's not gonna happen, and Haynes King's gonna take the sack. So North Carolina's about to win, but at least this one wasn't a blowout, and he is gonna get just enough for the first down. Even though he just got railed by that defender, it's not over yet. He is still standing tall in the pocket, stepping up, but they have wasted so much time, and their best options probably just thrown up some Hail Marys, so I don't know why they ran it. For like the millionth time in this video, I'll say that the AI on this game just isn't very smart, and North Carolina picks up the fumble. This one is over, and they're gonna take it back to the end zone just to rub some salt in the wound. They might have been the most intelligent college, but that didn't lead to a win on the field, and now it looks like Japan got flooded as well. I already know if North Carolina loses, I'm gonna forget to fill that in, and the third time's the charm. Will San Jose State finally have to play? The answer is yes, and it's gonna be a battle of the Spartans because Michigan State is in Greece, and that was one of the first placements that I ever made when I created the map. Everyone on Twitter also vouched for it, but I did put them in some ugly jerseys. So they're gonna win the battle of the Spartans, but they are not winning in style wearing these. Those are some of the ugliest things they ever came out with, but I feel like they would have been alright if they didn't have state big across the entire chest. Unfortunately, if they haven't worn them for a few years, I don't think that's going to be brought into College Football 25, but anytime I've used the Spartans in this game on my channel, I always make sure to put them on, and Marshall has to play again. This is when things get really serious because all they can do is attack North Carolina, and the winner of this game is going to have way too much territory. We saw Marshall beat Michigan though, so they do stand a chance here, but they did not play the same way, losing 30-3. When I show you the team stats, you're going to be shocked, but yardage wise, it was 104 total yards of offense versus 422, and we might have found the worst quarterback stat line that we've seen throughout the entire video. Iowa wants this kid immediately. I really couldn't help myself there. I am so sorry, Hawkeyes fans. I just had to throw it in. Anyway, North Carolina's gotten to the point where they've taken over almost all of Asia, and teams from Europe have got to start challenging them soon. Before that can happen though, the wheel has landed on Temple, and if this arrow is pointing over here, it means that they're attacking the Blazers. This is a big game for UAB being on that part of the map, and this is one of the two colleges I said they have to take down if they want to make it to the top 10. They've done what they've needed to here, winning with an odd score, and I don't think I've ever seen 25-15 before. It's their kicker that deserves to win Player player of the game. And even though I flooded half of them, UAB is still in control of so many different islands. The only thing they need to do is get the other half of this one where Louisiana is, and the wheel has really protected that program by never landing on them. It has landed on Penn State though. There's only one way they can go, and that is to the west, but at that angle it's not going to hit the open country, and instead it's going to hit the Sooners. Whoever wins this probably takes all of Africa, and we've been waiting on this one for a while. We might be getting a classic too, but on the defensive side of things, as these teams have combined for 20, and it blows my mind that Oklahoma only has 6 points with a minute left in the game. They're going to have to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to send it to overtime. We'll see what happens. It's off of the back foot and intercepted by the Nittany Lions. That seals the game for Penn State. Dylan Gabriel should have set his feet in that situation, and the entire southern part of Africa is now owned by Oklahoma. It's not as much as what we see from Stanford, Washington, or North Carolina, but it might be the 4th biggest territory at the moment, and there's Kansas State. With where they're sitting, we know that they're probably playing UCF, and they didn't get bailed out going into any of this small blank country. They're going up, which hits the Knights. These are two solid teams, so this should be a great matchup, and I'm still adjusting to UCF being a Big 12 member. This is a conference game in 2024, and a close one too, with UCF only down by 5 with a minute left, and I thought the Knights got out of bounds there. If that was real life, they would have, and on 3rd and 6, the check down is going to be not great, because RJ Harvey ran in the opposite direction that he needed to, and UCF is not going to win. The Wildcats defense just held it down at the end, and Will Howard has gotten a little bit more of Africa. I mean, that win vastly increased Kansas State's territory size, and the map is really starting to thin out. Sooner or later, we're going to be under just 15 teams, but North Carolina having to go on the attack could ruin everything. They're headed straight down south, and they're just going to miss out on Wisconsin, but there's no guarantees that they beat Nevada either, and we saw what the Wolfpack were able to do to NC State. The Tar Heels did not care though, performing much better than their in-state rivals did, and they're going to win this one by 21. They've beaten like 8 teams at this point, and Drake May didn't even have a good day, turning the ball over twice. Picking up this piece of land is a pretty big deal though, because now they're touching even more colleges, and they're basically surrounding Georgia, so they're probably going to have to play them at some point. Now that was a close call, but the wheel just landed on Louisiana, and I've been waiting to see the Raging Cajuns, who are located in Papua New Guinea. I know I butchered that one, you don't have to flame me in the comments for it, and the only reason they even got them is somebody sent me their colors side by side with that country, and they matched up, but they waited all that time to just get beat by 17. I thought this was going to be a much different game than it was, but Jacob Zeno decided he wanted to stand on business, and because of him, not only has his team taken over the entire oceanic region, but he has also carried them to a top 15 finish. There's still a few colleges on here too that haven't played a single game, but part of Imperialism's all about the wheel, and Georgia's been landed on. I hate this for Troy, because up until this moment they did well, but Georgia started in the country Georgia because it's a perfect match with the name, and I think they're about to annihilate Troy. I wanted to say it was a good run for the Trojans, but look at this. With a minute left, they're up by 12 points, and they're not getting this 3rd and 1, but even then it's going to be very hard for the Bulldogs to come back. I don't quite get how they've been in this position, but their defense has done something insane, and they're going to beat Georgia by double digits. My only guess is it has to be the home field advantage, but the odds of beating the Bulldogs were so low, and Carson Beck didn't play bad. What's crazy to me is Georgia had 7 red zone trips and only 1 time came away with points, so that lost them the game, and Troy is still in this one. What a remarkable result. I would have never expected it, but at this point, with all the wins they've gotten, we have to view them better. And of course, Boston College has made it to the end, attacking Michigan State. No matter how I do the map, the Eagles are always around at the end, and we'll see if they're able to take down the Spartans out of Greece. I swear, we have gotten so many close games in this as well, but Michigan State gets the interception, and that's going to pretty much end it already. The first play I hop into, the Spartans are up by 6, they get the turnover, and Caden Hooser walks away with a big win. Boston College stuck around that entire time just to do that. And how has Houston made it this far without having to play much? We've seen teams like Washington take over entire continents, and now they're headed down south, but in order to get to Stanford's territory, they do have to go through Florida. I think that makes logical sense, so that's who they're playing, and we all know that the Swamp is not an easy place to play at. It's not too bad when the Gators stink though, and they're gonna lose this game 38-7. Don't ask me what jerseys the Huskies have on though, something's glitched out. And the important thing to note is Michael Penix has done it again. He has eviscerated the Florida Gators off of the rest of the map, and things are coming down to the wire with just 12 teams remaining. This is when things get tough, because you really don't want to be landed on, and we'll see what direction this ends up pointing Florida State in. They could have gotten Troy, but instead it goes straight up to North Carolina, and the Tar Heels have been on one of the best runs we've ever seen. Normally, for a team to do something like what they've done, they have to be a big powerhouse, because eventually somebody's bound to get the best of them, and it might be Florida State. They just dropped that interception, but at some point the Seminoles were down 20-0, and they've gone on a 24-point run. All of the momentum is on Florida Florida State's side because North Carolina's had a terrible second half, and this type of collapse is why I was so impressed that they haven't lost in all the games that they've played in. All of a sudden, it's 4th and 10, and Drake May is going to get it out, but it floated way too long, and on top of that, it was really off target. His defense is going to have to bail him out if they want to get the ball back, but it's not happening, and the Seminoles are going to take down North Carolina. We knew a moment like this would probably come, but it stings for it to be the Seminoles since they haven't played a game in a long time, and they're instantly granted the largest territory in the world. At least in my opinion, they did get put in a really good starting spot because there really weren't that many teams in the Middle East, and Houston can't avoid playing for any longer because that arrow is just going to touch their tip. They've been sitting in Austria because their colors are similar to theirs, and this has to be the first time that they've had to play or do anything. It's not going well for them either, considering they've only scored 10 points through 4 quarters of football, and Donovan Smith had to spike the ball to stop the clock on 3rd and 4. He's going to throw it over the middle though, and they're at midfield. I have no faith in them though because they've made USC's defense look super good, and that's a hard task to do. Now they only have 25 seconds, and this first down gets them to the 33. But if they don't start running 4 verticals, this one's over. You cannot throw it for 5 yards, and this is what they need, but it's going to be dropped. The Houston wide receiver didn't even go for the ball, but it wasn't a great throw from Donovan Smith, and on 2nd and 10, he goes to his running back who gets out of bounds. That was the right move from him. With 6 seconds left, you just have to chuck it to the end zone, hoping for the best, and there's no way USC just choked that. I literally have no words. How do you mess that up? All you have to do is just put a lot of defenders back in the end zone. I cannot believe it. They're out. Caleb Williams had to be fuming over on the sidelines when that happened, and he just dropped the ball. It is done. They're going to rub the salt in the wound too by taking it in, and we just witnessed a generational choke job. Houston has stepped up and somehow made it to the top 10 off of just one win, and they're going to get a lot of land with it. That was absolutely nuts, but it's also one of the best parts of college football imperialism, and I couldn't tell you which of these 10 teams is going to win the entire thing. There's only a couple small schools left, but they've really held their own, and this has to be the moment where Washington could take over all of the Americas. Before they cross over the Atlantic Ocean to attack, they have to get rid of Stanford first, and these are the final 2 teams on that massive piece of land. All of their efforts throughout this imperialism all come down to this, and we've been blessed. How do we have another game that's going to come down to the final minute? And Ashton Daniels, what are you doing? That was such a bad read from him, but at least Washington couldn't hold on to it, and with no timeouts left, you have to start going for 20-yard passes. That was not what they needed there. It's 4th and 1, and they do pick it up for a bit, so I guess it is more important that they keep the chains moving. Ashton Daniels is going to have plenty of time to miss this pass, and on 2nd and 10, they only sent 3 at him, but he's going to take the sack. All they can really do is spike the ball here and then set up for the Hail Mary. We just saw Houston win off of one, but Washington was smarter, sending some pressure. They've officially taken over both the Americas, and they've put themselves in a really good position. Teams can't cross oceans until they take over their continent, so they might not have to play for a bit, and they just get to watch from the sidelines as chaos unfolds everywhere else. Michigan State's been landed on, and they are headed to the northeast, so I thought they were going to have to play against Troy, but it's actually going to be Florida State. Having the most land means that you have to defend it more, and this is a great example of it, but we'll see what happens. It's yet another game that is super tight here at the end, and Florida State is only up by 6 points. That seems to happen a lot in most of these games. I don't know what the computers got going on, but a touchdown and an extra point would win the game for the Spartans, so there's a chance they could steal all of the Seminoles' territory, and that is going to be an amazing throw. They just got themselves inside the red zone, and now they're going to run for another 6, but they still have more work to do, and with the jet sweep, they moved the chains again. I don't understand their reasoning behind calling a timeout though, and they've done it again, giving Florida State a chance to respond if they're able to reach the end zone. Jordan Travis has plenty of time, but that kick return took them 12 seconds, and this wide receiver screen goes for almost no gain. Florida State's also not hiking the ball, so once again, the old AI on this game is going to ruin this result. They're not going to get the win, but I think they won an imperialism during the year, and there's no way that Michigan State did, so they're just giving the Spartans a chance for something new to happen. I cannot wait for College Football 25, because the AI on this game makes it so hard to spectate more than a couple of minutes. Every single college is playing with the same disadvantage though, and there's just 8 of them left, with Oklahoma and Washington being the best ones. There's a decent chance that those are the 2 that meet in the final, especially since OU has all these blank countries sitting around them, and the odds of them playing even when they're landed on are not that high. For Michigan State though, they have it a little bit differently, and with this arrow going up, the closest team to it is Wisconsin. Only one of these teams is going to get through this battle, and these are not the 2 Big Ten opponents I thought would be at this position. It's close though, like it should be, because these teams are pretty even on paper, and they're just lucky that that wasn't ruled as a fumble. Michigan State down by 7 is going to take a few yards, and that's not worth it. You're better just throwing up 50-50 balls 30-40 yards down the field, and that's what they needed. They already proved that they can come out on top in crunch time like they did against Florida State, but this time around they have a lot less time. They almost need to just start sending up Hail Marys to the end zone just to send it to OT, and now is not the time to spike the ball. What are they thinking and what's taking so long? What makes me so mad about the computer is they could have run a whole play during that time span, and now they're not going to get another snap off. Wisconsin has literally taken over everything that they just got, and the teams left on this world map can only change so many more times. If I'm counting right, there's only 7 programs left, and the wheel is going to take us over to Oklahoma. Now, like I said last time it landed on them, they're probably not going to play, and that's exactly what happened. They just have these small countries right in front of them. I'm glad I didn't put anybody there because their logo wouldn't have been visible, but the wheel has taken us to Washington, so they're going to have to play. I think we have to look at the world map here, and if an arrow is pointing down in this direction, by the time it gets over to this side, it's going to hit this part of Asia. So Wisconsin is up, and this game's for more than half the world. The stakes have not been any higher than they are right now, and Wisconsin's put up a really good fight, only trailing by 7 with less than 2 minutes. That was a bad pass, but they still have plenty of time to make up for it, and this is really their one chance because if they don't have a successful drive, it is all over. That is going to be dropped though, and how do you mess up this opportunity of a lifetime? That alone would have put them in such a great spot to have an opportunity to send this thing to overtime, but instead Washington got the stop, and that's the end of the game. The map has literally just been taken over by the Huskies, and almost anybody that this lands on is probably going to have to play them. For example, there's not really anywhere else for UAB to go, and with that arrow pointing up, it's definitely going to hit this peninsula. I knew the Blazers would probably get this far just based off of their starting spot, but now they're faced playing the national championship runner-up. The fact that they're only down by 8 with a minute left is very impressive, but they're also in a really rough position because they have to work it all the way down the field and get the 2-point conversion just to send it to overtime, and there's 23 seconds left on the clock now, even if they do convert here. I think this is where you start sending shots to the end zone, not that, and after spiking the ball, all they can do is set up for one final play. On the bright side, they got out of bounds, but they still have a long way to go, and this is in the air. It is going to be dropped, so Washington gets another win. But we have to respect that type of effort from the Blazers, and I think I'm going to lose my mind changing the map if Washington loses now, because across the entire world, they have like 30 different islands that I have to fill in individually. Of all the teams left on this list though, only a couple could probably beat them, and Oklahoma is one of them who is attacking to the south. There's nothing down there, so this just means more territories for them. And by the way, some of those other spots are just little lakes. I mean, they're actually massive in real life, but on the map they look small. And Houston is another team challenging Washington. The Huskies might have to beat every college left, but if they do that, they more than deserve to win this Imperialism. And look at that, it is another close finish where they are going to almost reach the end zone. Tied up at 21, I didn't know the Cougars were built like this, but they have done well for themselves, and on 1st and 10, their quarterback sees the open space, so he is going to take advantage. That's one thing Donovan Smith has done well in the game that we've spectated, and he is going to throw this away. But there's no need to force anything because there's still a minute and a half left, and that was close. The game would practically be over if the Washington defender could have just held onto the ball, and he's struggling to hook up with these guys now. You have to hit them in the hands, and that's what he's done on this play. They even had a one-handed catch. Clearly, those two got some chemistry, and on this next one, you might as well hit the running back in the flat if nobody's going to guard him. Time is still starting to tick though, so they have to have a little urgency, and they've started to burn their timeouts, which means it's all or nothing. If they fail this drive, the game is over. That's not ideal with it being 4th down, but they had 5 receivers out there on the field, and he found one of them in the end zone. We might just be getting another overtime game. I feel like it's been a long time since we had one, and there's still time for Michael Penix to get him into field goal range, but knowing how the computer works, they're not going to be smart about the 3 timeouts that they have remaining in the 33 seconds, so after getting that 1st down, they probably won't even hike the ball. Well, that just caught me by surprise. I've seen the computer sit at those moments, and they're so capable of getting a very large gain off of one pass. That's what they're about to try here, and it's dropped. Rome Odunze had that ball in his hands, and he's going to regret that, because after catching it short of the marker, they just punted it back, and now we're in OT. If Houston wants to win, they have got to make sure that they get a touchdown on this drive. I don't know what Donovan Smith's doing, because he had a wide open lane to take the 1st down, but instead he ran towards the defender, and that means the Cougars are just settling for 3. Washington's practically won this game. It's hard enough to stop their offense in the first place, and on this next play, they're going to get the run blown up, but they could still pass for a lot, and what are they doing? Odds are they're not going to pick up 13 yards, so they're going to kick the field goal, and we're headed to double overtime. But this makes for an interesting decision. They went with the lame option, so that's disappointing, but they'll probably follow it up with a touchdown now that they're no longer under as much pressure. I've sat through one of these games for 10 overtimes before, so I've seen the computer go back and forth making bad decision after bad decision, and on 3rd and goal, the Huskies are going to get the tutty. Now it's on Houston to respond back back with one themselves, and Donovan Smith just ran an odd play. But they're trying to mix things up, catch Washington off guard, and they've done well enough to be in the game. I really thought it was going to be a blowout, so it's impressive that it's even close, and I think we're going to be headed to triple overtime. Now when teams score touchdowns, they're going to have to attempt the 2-point conversion instead of taking an extra point, so that can create some separation as well, and Houston gets a first down. These offenses are starting to show out, going back and forth, and this is such a crucial result with only 5 teams left. I feel like I have to watch every play. Getting a sack there makes it 3rd and 11, and Houston's going to catch it still or not. And how did this player mess it up? The ball was in his hands. Once again, Washington can win with a touchdown, and I really hope they do because I don't want to sit through multiple more overtimes. What I would do in this situation is vastly different than the computer, and all the Huskies have to do is pass the ball. It is what they're good at, and there they go. Michael Penix has led them to another win, and besides Troy being in Turkey, the Huskies are in control of Europe too now. They have dominated in this imperialism, and let's see if they can avoid playing in another matchup. It's landed on Oklahoma, and that's going to take them down south, but the closest thing to that arrow is another small country. The Sooners have been put in such a good position, and will they have to play after this arrow spin? We're about to find out. It's pointed up, and that means they're going to have to go on the road at Troy, who's the final small school that's still alive on the map. At a 77 overall, though, they were bound to lose a game at some point, and Dillon Gabriel played out of his mind while Gunnar Watson struggled quite a bit. I respect what they did, though. It was really impressive some of the schools that they were able to take down throughout this game, and now we're left with just 3 teams standing. Who this lands on is now more important than ever before, and Washington's not locked into the championship. They have to play. I figured it wouldn't be easy to tell where this arrow is pointing at, but it did hit Kansas State, and Oklahoma just automatically made it to the final. All these teams are pretty even on paper too. They're about an 88 to 90 overall, so it's anybody's title for the taking, but Kansas State came out and played terribly, which means they've been eliminated, but I can't believe how bad it was. Will Howard was so bad that he got benched going into the 4th quarter, and it's no surprise that Washington got even more land. This is where things get interesting though, because somebody has to attack somebody, and there's still some open spaces standing between these 2 teams. For example, Oklahoma would have had to attack Washington if it weren't for this tiny country that they just took over, and the Sooners have been bailed out so many times not having to play because of it. This time the wheel is going to land pointing that same direction, and finally there's no other country for them to claim. They have to attack Washington. This is literally it. It all comes down to this, and it was just a few days ago when I started with a full world map of 126 teams. This has been a huge project to film, but with 4 minutes left in the game, it is all tied up at 21, and we're going to watch the rest to see who comes out on top in the final imperialism I'm doing on NCAA Football 14. With a defensive stop right there, it really is anybody's game. Oklahoma's going to get this at the 20, and they're just going to hand it off on the first play to lose a few yards. Neither offense has really excelled the way that you would expect them to in this type of matchup, but right now all one of these teams need is a field goal. And why didn't Dillon Gabriel pitch the ball? It would be nuts if this ended up going to overtime in the championship. I'm not sure we've ever had that happen in an imperialism, and the return goes for a little bit, but they're still at least 25-30 yards out from field goal range, and watching Washington's play calling is making me so mad. Just like against Houston, when they should be throwing the ball, they don't, and now they have to punt it again immediately. The pressure's on, and they're not coming up clutch when they need to, but neither is Oklahoma. They keep going back to running the ball, and finally they get something. These teams are feeling each other out in the 4th quarter with the game on the line, and Andrew Anthony just got his world rocked, but he still made sure he held on to the football. 3rd and 6, a minute remaining now. I'll be interested to see what they do if they don't pick this up, but they do, and this could be a game-winning drive from Oklahoma and Dillon Gabriel. They're already past midfield, but they're not in field goal range yet, and they're not going to hike the ball. What is the point of having all 3 of your timeouts left if you're going to run it down to 13 seconds left? I really don't get it, and I'm sure it was super hard to code back when they released this game, but I would have expected the computer to be smarter. Now I have to watch these 2 offenses go back and forth in overtime because they didn't know what they were doing, and that would make for great content if they didn't trade field goals back and forth. That's my prediction of what's going to happen here. Washington has it, and even sitting in 5 wide, they don't want to let Michael Penix throw the ball. Finally they do, but it blows my mind that they have made it this far with some of the stuff I'm seeing, and that is a dot. That is why you let Michael Penix sling it, and I'm even watching the extra points. I'm not risking somebody making a huge mistake. It's 2nd and 8 for Oklahoma now, and Dillon Gabriel is going to find his flat, but Drake Stoops just fell right on over, and on 3rd and 4, he's about to take a sack, but he gets it out on the run, and what a play. That is the exciting stuff that I've been looking for, and now I'm pumped up to see this finish. Teams are finally playing offense. Championship on the line. Oklahoma is going to go back to the option on 2nd and goal, but Dillon Gabriel got obliterated, and he is going to take the sack. Everything that's happened in this video comes down to this final moment. They have to reach the end zone in order to tie it up, and they threw it short. They're not going to do it. So that's how it ends, and it was Michael Penix that got the job done. Honestly, that was so much fun, both putting together this map and then seeing how it all played out, leaving Washington, who was representing Canada, as the final team standing across the whole world. If you've made it this far though, please make sure to smash the like button. This took a long time to put together, and make sure to check out some of my rebuilds before the new game drops.